Okay, thanks a lot. Sorry about that. We're running a little late getting together here, but we're going to open the meeting with a silent meditation and a pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we get started, Mr. Mayor, do you want to make any comments in reference to your budget message that you had put out?
I want to wait for another second, one of the councilmen have it run out.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't notice that, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
I just want to tell you, in front of you, you have my message. I hope you all got it. It's online and it's delivered by mail. Did everybody get the message?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. It's our my 27th budget. Again, a balanced budget, and hopefully we have all of our directors here. I would just like and not read this whole this message, just put it on the record. I think you told me yesterday it was 27 pages. It's only 7. So anyway, I'd just like to enter that onto the record and not read the whole thing tonight to spare everyone that problem. So,
Single-spaced, by the way.
I'd like to turn it over to you, Mr. President. Our directors are all here, and I think you have a agenda in front of you.
Okay, yeah, the first person I'm going to introduce is John Jankowski. He's our finance manager to do an overview of what we're looking at tonight. John, I'm sorry.
You have one?
Thank you, Council President Ms. Knowles, members of council, mayor. I am pleased to report that after the 2018 audit was finalized, the township was able to return an additional $5.3 million to the general fund budget. This fund balance allows the township to fund programs such as the Homeowners Assistance Grant. Since the grant was started in 2007, the township has been able to return over $42 million to our residents. As many of us know, through the years when the economy was down, the township has had to make the tough calls and reduce the grant payment to as low as $100. This was done to ensure the township would not need to raise real estate taxes nor sacrifice the services that we provide to our community. Since the presentation of the budget, the administration has been asked to see if we would be able to increase the grant payment amount to an amount higher than $300. After looking into these options, the answer is that the grant payment increase to a figure higher than $300, the township could not sustain such an increase and would need to raise real estate taxes in the future. Raising the grant could also run the risk of having to issue 1099s to our low-income seniors and disabled residents, hurting them further. Please keep in mind that at its current level, the $300 homeowners assistance grant represents what an average property owner pays for their township real estate taxes. I thank you for this opportunity and would like to have Fred Harron, Director of Public Safety, come to the podium to present the police budget that can be found on page 11.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, council members, mayor, and residents and citizens of Bensalem. I'm here tonight, certainly in a few minutes, to take questions regarding the budget for 2020. But before we begin, I just wanted to kind of go forward and talk about our path forward for 2020 and kind of what we saw in 2019, some of the things that we've been doing here within the police department, and some of the things we plan on doing for 2020. As you know, Bensalem Township currently, it's 104 people within the police department. In this year's budget, we are putting in for 2 additional officers, bringing it to a total of 106 personnel within the police department. Let me talk about some of the surrounding and neighboring townships. And I think I used this graph last year, but updated it to some of the numbers that we're seeing around us. As you can see, Bensalem Township being about 21 square miles, you could see our breakdown to 104 from myself down to the most junior patrol officer, and then Lower Marion also at about 24 square miles at 132, followed by Bristol Township at about 17 at 60 officers, and Lancaster City at 7.4 square miles at 139 officers, Abington at 92 at 15.5 square miles, and Gloucester, New Jersey at 23 square miles with 133 personnel, Cherry Hill with 24.5 square miles at 135 individuals, and Upper Darby at 7.83 with 121 officers. You can also see the breakdown of command staff. Currently, we have right now at the police department, myself, a deputy director, 6 lieutenants, 10 sergeants, and then 78 officers, detectives, and corporals. And you can see that breakdown. So we're doing a lot of good work here, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. And we're holding our own, and I respectfully request the 2 additional officers that we've worked out, and you'll hear about that in the budget as well, and some of the great success that we've been having. Just to show you, this is a very busy slide, but just to show you, it's not just me and 103 people. There's a whole breakdown, a whole flow chart of how things run, and it's a very, very smooth operation. If you remember, we are only one of 14 nationally accredited agencies in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania out of less than 200 nationally in the United States, and that is the gold, the platinum, the highest standard you can get in policing that we were able to achieve some years ago. Let's talk about some of our statistics years ago and today. And we use 2009, kind of give us a 10 years look back. 2009, also some programs that we started in 2009 where we started to see some really dramatic reductions in crime. But you could see that from 2009 to 2018, we've seen a 12% increase in total calls for service. A small drop from 2015, about a 4% drop. Incident reports, you can see a 39, almost a 40% increase in incident reports or calls that we're actually taking and doing follow-up investigations, and that's another 12% from 2015. Our total arrests are up 15% from 2009 to 10 years later, or 9 years later, and slightly down from 2011. I'll explain a little later why that is. And traffic stops also. You can see that we have a 45% increase in traffic stops from 2009 to 2018. Down a little bit in the last couple of years, down about 7%. But generally, we're holding that line, but we've seen a major increase in that last 10 years. You don't need to read the numbers here, but I'm just going to outline what this slide means. The top line is, again, from 2009, or 2017, rather. I'm sorry, I can't see it. 9, we saw that 15% increase in arrests, traffic stops increase, DUIs, a 43% increase in DUIs. What we're really seeing, too, is 48% of that 43 is driving while drugged. People that are driving under the influence of a controlled substance, not necessarily alcohol. But then you start to see some numbers that are very impressive and really what it means to Bensalem Township. Our retail thefts, our thefts from the stores are down 28%. Our burglaries are down, all right, I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. Trying to avoid glasses. Our burglaries are down 47%, and our robberies are down, I believe that's a 36%. So we're seeing some incredible reductions in crime. And those are not what you see nationally. Nationally, historically throughout the United States, burglaries and crimes like that are down about 4.5 to 6.5%. So they're down across the country, burglaries. But in Bensalem Township, we're down some incredible numbers. And I'm going to explain how we've achieved that. Also, some of the things that you hear on TV regarding law enforcement, use of force. In the last 3 years, out of 13,876 arrests, we had 58 times that we had to go hands-on with an individual. That's half of 1% of all the arrests that we actually had to use force on an individual. Those numbers are also very low. The national average is about 4 to 6% of the time. So we are well below the national average of having to use force. And a lot of that comes for the supervision, which I'm going to talk about, and the training that we get here in Bensalem Township. But there are two areas that we continue to have issues with. One is certainly our drug arrests. You've seen a 56% increase in narcotics-related arrests from 2009 to 2018. So our narcotics arrests continue to rise. We also have, through the leadership of mayor and council and the police department, 9% of our police department here in Bensalem is assigned to full-time narcotics. 9% of the police department is assigned to full-time narcotics. And a lot of that is because of our location to Philadelphia, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Also, as you're well aware, the major thoroughfares out of New York City, we're an hour and 15 minutes from New York City. We border Philadelphia. And you can see the overdose rates that have increased over the years. Again, from 2009 to 2018, a 598% increase in overdoses and almost a 1,500% increase in fatal overdoses. I will say from 2018 to so far in 2009, we're starting to see a minor decrease in fatalities and in overdoses. And this is a narcotics presentation, more of a budget presentation, but there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the biggest reasons is the availability of Narcan on the street and the amount of residents that are able to possess their own Narcan and administer it. But I just want to give you a little taste of a narcotics investigation that happened in 2018. It was 3 particular narcotics investigations. Some were quick, some were a little lengthy, but 3 investigations for a total of 1,753 hours of investigation, a cost to Bensalem taxpayers at $151,000. Now that cost is officers on straight time, officers on overtime, officers utilizing federal overtime that we get money in and then reallocate it out, but that's $151,000 for 3 narcotics investigations. And that unit in that particular year, not only those 3 investigations, but had an additional 288 investigations. So we're not in a for-profit business, unfortunately. These narcotics investigations are very lengthy sometimes and very costly. Narcotics continues to be a major problem. 80% of our crime is drug-related. Oh, sorry. Oop, let me go back here. And those 3 narcotics investigations, these are all the people that were involved, that were arrested in those 3 particular cases. So you could see it's just a lot of people, a lot of man hours and personnel hours in these investigations. Another case that we had that was aired on the news was $4.5 million in narcotics in one of our apartment complexes. These 3 individuals were arrested. When we served the search warrant on the house, they were in the midst of cutting up the heroin and the fentanyl. 2 out of the 3 people were in this country illegally. So these are some of the issues that we're faced with here in Bensalem. How do we achieve these? I'm going to get into that right now. A lot of it's through our very proactive policing. We're not a reaction police department. Some of the police departments that you saw up on that screen are more reactive. They 911-based calls. They get a 911 call, they respond. We try to stay on top of things. We have a lot of plainclothes officers out on the street. We use a lot of studied programs that have shown to be proven through law enforcement throughout the nation. Our DDAX program, we do a holistic approach, which you're very familiar with, to narcotics enforcement. We look at the 3-prong approach: enforcement, education, rehabilitation, and of course our literally world-famous DNA program, which we've also seen some incredible results. But I said there were 2 things that we're faced with. One is drugs. The second is mental health, and certainly the potential of an active shooter threat in our community. So you could see the FBI study that was done in 2016 and 2017, a 50% increase in active shooters. This is something that we see on the news regularly, and this is something that we practice for, we work with, we partner with the school district, we partner, the law enforcement partners with our 2 other disciplines in public safety, our fire department, and of course our EMS, to make sure that our schools are safe. How do we do this? We participate in all the school fire drills. We participate in the security drills. We have active meetings monthly, if not weekly sometimes, with the school district, dealing with some of the children that are having issues. We were the first ones to institute a tactical casualty care training through our EMS, where officers are trained in stopping an individual who has been shot, stopping the blood from rushing out. Most people, a lot of studies have been shown that people don't die by the initial gunshot. They die because they're laying on the floor for 45 minutes. So all our officers, we were the first in Bucks County, are trained in how to control that and evacuate those individuals working with EMS. And certainly our school safety and lockdown programs that we do. Daily walkthroughs. Why is this important? Because this all costs money. Everything costs money. School resource officers, our high school and our middle school, we are getting the funding from the school district for, I believe, 4 more years for our middle school. Trained in lockdown procedures, our witness drills, and police officers are always in our schools. Some other initiatives that we have, just to go through real quickly, not to dwell on them, our BPAIR, our Police Assisting in Recovery. We were the first ones in Bucks County. One of the first ones in the United States, the first one in Pennsylvania, that you can walk into the police station at 3 o'clock in the morning, ask for help. You will not be arrested. We will get you into drug treatment and get you assessed and treated if the professionals believe you need that assessment. Then we ramped it up a little bit. As Emerald would say, we spiced it up, and now you could do a video assessment. What used to take 4 hours in Bucks County now takes 20 minutes in Bensalem Township Police Department. Then we have our behind closed doors, which have been surprising. I didn't realize it was going to make such a great hit, but it's that trailer that goes around to all our schools and all the different community events that teaches parents what to look for, the signs of drug abuse, unhealthy relationships, mental health, potential for violence, and things of that nature. And of course, as some of you know, we just partnered. We were the first ones in the area to partner with our FBI. We had all but one house of worship in Bensalem that attended this training at Bensalem Country Club. We hosted it, and it was very, very well received. We had a packed house that night. We are also the only ones that we had the NAACP sitting on our hiring panel. 2 members of the NAACP were involved in our recent round of hiring. And we were very, very successful for that. Doing presentations to the Bucks County Human Relations Council. 40% of our police department right now, we're trying to get 100%, but again, everything takes time and money. Crisis intervention training, dealing with people from mental illness. And of course, we have the only police athletic league in Bucks County. I believe the numbers are about 1,100 right now of kids that get to participate 12 months a year in some sort of athletics or activity. It's not just athletic, not every kid's an athlete. Free of charge, no cost to the taxpayers, no cost to the family. And of course, as I said a little earlier, 14 police departments in Pennsylvania that are accredited. A lot of the community outreach programs. So what are we going to continue to do? What we're doing this year and we're going to be doing next year is the high visibility and increased contacts with individual. We're going to focus on our drugs, our DNA collection, our DDACs. Transparency with the public is extremely important in this day and age. As you know, last year in the budget, we voted and you voted, and we were able to obtain body cameras for all the police officers. It's been a very, very successful program. Some of the other technology that we got, and you're going to see that in the budget, that's why I'm talking about it right now, is Axon Digital Evidence Management, which is all cloud-based. All evidence is very little human interaction. It's all computerized. Nobody's touching evidence anymore. It's all being logged in, logged out. So there's tracks of everything we do. And the Beast is, I don't know where they came up with that name, but the Beast is also computer software and just other programs. Right now, cell phone videos and getting videos from the community is the latest and greatest, and we're on top of that. Our rapid DNA, we were the first police department in the United States to institute that, and we've had some incredible success with that. And of course, our Cody Cobra, our records management system, our Guardian accountability program, and our Crime Watch, where we get numerous tips. Some of the challenges that we faced ahead of us. Philadelphia is a challenge. Philadelphia being a sanctuary city is a huge challenge. You saw that big drug case that we had. 2 out of 3 of those individuals were in this country illegally. A lot of them have had contacts with Philadelphia because of the crime associated with the city, and then they finding their way into Bensalem Township. Philadelphia police officers don't have to live in the city anymore. The 8th District on Knights Road in that area used to be a buffer zone between Bensalem and Philadelphia. That's not the way it is anymore. The crime is moving up from the city. The shooting and the homicide rate in Philadelphia is, I believe, at a 12% increase. the decriminalization of marijuana. The top purity of heroin in the country is in the Delaware Valley. These 5 counties are the purest heroin in the United States. Philadelphia is the heroin capital of the United States. The emergence, again, of methamphetamine, which I saw in the 70s and the 80s when I got here, and now methamphetamine is making a huge comeback. We're actually seeing more methamphetamine than heroin right now, and marijuana laced with all kinds of hallucinogenic drugs. So as people try to decriminalize marijuana, the criminals are now lacing it with other drugs. And now the newest that I just got a bulletin today, that they are now putting fentanyl in vaping pipes and vaping fentanyl. So vaping, people think it's not a big deal, is a huge deal. Officers' time on calls. When I got here in 1987, we spent about 15 minutes on a call. Now the officer's doing 45 minutes to an hour on a call. Obviously, active shooters, I talked about this before. We have 38 schools in Bensalem, 38 daycares and schools, and 28 houses of worship. So 15 public schools and 23 everything else between private schools and daycare centers. So these are all things and all places we have to actively work with. Technology. As right now, somebody's figuring out a new way of committing crime. The internet is the new crime scene. The internet is the new crime scene. You'll see there's a lot of stuff in the budget for technology. And in training and liability, we continue to train, because the training reduces our liability. And the media, and the perception of people, even if something's not true, if someone believes it's true, and we have some programs that are going to be kicked off in 2020, partnering with our district attorney's office, we have to deal with that. And of course, right to know requests, we're getting bogged down hours and hours of time for officers, and one of my lieutenants, that's all he does is right to know. Not all he does, but that's what he spends a lot of time on, is right to know requests. And the 63,000 calls for service. Not going to go through these unless you have particular questions when you get into the budget, but this is just a snapshot, kind of whet your appetite, if you will, of some of the software that we are deploying and utilizing. Voyager is a big ticket item, and that's in the budget. We could certainly go into that a little bit more, but these are some of the companies that we're working with just to deal with the crime that's out there. And I've talked about all this, our partnership with our community, the leadership within the township, our effective supervision, which the mayor has been very, very grateful to allow us to have the proper supervision on the streets, and successful training. I'm going to end with this, which I think I just want to share. If you haven't followed this on Facebook, Officer Schwarting and his canine partner, Bowie, was selected from the East Coast of the United States. A&E is launching a new show, I believe it's January 8th. I think it's up there, right? January 8th. January 8th at 9 p.m., a new show on A&E premieres America's Top Dog. And we were selected to be in that because our canine officers have received so many awards on the East Coast of the United States, and Officer Schwarting was the one picked to represent this area. And here's a little flavor of...
Get ready for the ultimate K9 competition. America's top dogs are going head-to-head in a test of strength, speed, and agility.
Here we go. Let the games begin.
From police canines to the smallest underdogs.
Oh, boy.
They'll battle it out to see who comes out on top. From the executive producer of American Ninja Warrior.
What an impressive team.
And the creators of Live PD.
Oh, that's a couple days, yeah.
These incredible, highly trained dogs are ready to take a bite out of the most epic obstacle course ever. Who will be America's top dog? New series premieres Wednesday, January 8th at 9 on A&E.
I will tell you, we're not on episode 1. They're going to let us know what episode. I think we're on episode 4, but they didn't do the scoring yet, so I don't know where we're going to fare out, but Officer Schwarting and Bowie are aces. So another proud moment for Bensalem. I mean, this would be great if we could at least score somewhere in this competition, which I'm hoping we do. Also, we get some prize money, and it would have to go to a nonprofit, so that's good too. Sorry, John. I went through it very quickly, not to occupy too much time, but I certainly would be more than happy to take any questions or comments that you might have.
Yeah, I had a quick question, Fred. I see the salaries up a little bit. We're hiring 2 police officers, and I understand minor equipment. That adds to minor equipment because you have to buy their equipment for the first time, I guess. And then a lot of the computer stuff's up, like you explained. The body cameras, they're $190,000 this year, and they weren't in the last 18 or 19. Is that because there was a grant and now we're paying for them?
Yeah, we had a grant for the first year. We're constantly looking for grant money, but body cameras is something that's going to eventually be mandated. It's going to be one of those unfunded mandates. I held off, and I believe it was 2016 or 17, the governor had signed legislation changing the Wiretap Act, I think it may have been 2015, I'm not sure, somewhere in the last couple of years, changing the Wiretap Act in Pennsylvania, so now we can wear body cameras in people's houses. We don't have to shut them off. Before, we had to shut them off because of the way Pennsylvania law was. I don't want to get into it, but this was something that was going to happen, and to be honest with you, it's been very successful for us. It's been very successful. If someone was making a complaint against an officer, it's never what the person thought, and then the camera, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Also, it's been very successful when we do interviewing people, crime scenes. So, this generation of millennials, they're just used to everything being on film, so it's not a big deal to them.
Yeah, no, I think it's important, and it saves us in liability, too.
Absolutely. That $100,000 and $200,000 would save us a ton of money down the road.
Okay, is there any questions from any other council members?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Bensalem is also going to be on a TV show, America's Best Budget, I heard. Just let you know. Listen, Fred, I have a few questions,
Yes, sir.
and we're going to keep it to the presentation that you have in front of us. So we have your number 41,790, or 41,800, excuse me, salaries and overtime. What's that including in overtime? What's the services that are provided for the overtime?
There's two overtime line items. Which one are you? Oh, 800?
Yeah.
So 800, the first overtime line item, that is court, that is backfill. So we have a minimum manpower staffing on the street. So if officers are out, if someone's in court, if someone is out sick, if someone's tied up, we have to bring people in. Court is a big expense for us, and certainly holdover overtime. One of the things I've always told officers, we're not gonna. Some departments will look the other way and not make an arrest because they can't get the overtime. If somebody's committing a crime, they're going to get locked up if that's what needs to be done. I'm not going to really worry about the money at that point. So right now in Bucks County, the night judges come out at 8 p.m., midnight, and 4 a.m., and then again at 8 a.m., and then on the weekend it will be every 4 hours continuing. So we have to arraign people, take them before a judge. We do a video arraignment, but many times the officer has to be present because they're swearing out on a complaint.
It's fairly consistent from the 2019 budget.
We've held the line with that, yeah.
All right, how about in operating expenses? We want to go to the item
Yeah.
42,492, special response team.
Yeah.
It's only a $6,000 difference, but what's the difference in the $25,000 and $31,000?
So it's especially units. A lot of times the officers get, after so much time, they request to get out. So they put in some years, and it's long nights when they're called out. And if they want to rotate out, we allow them to rotate out. But we have to get new vests. We have to get equipment. We're always upgrading our equipment, updating our equipment. So this year, I think we have 3 maybe new officers coming in, and some of that might be their equipment. It's different armor equipment that we buy in that line item. I can go through it specifically with you if you want every single thing that we buy. I'd be more than happy to do that.
No, it's just, but you're giving me a chance. It's within reason. I just want to know what it's for. And
Yes, sir.
You answered that question. Let me take you on, since you're almost into there anyway. You have 47,500 minor equipment from 189 to 305.
Yeah.
That's hundreds.
Yeah, so
thousands of dollars.
we were, years ago, anything in major equipment has to be a $5,000 and I believe 5-year purchase. So it has to last for 5 years, and it has to be a minimum of $5,000. So the last couple of years, we've been making sure that everything gets into the right line item. I just want to go through my minor equipment because it is pretty in depth, and I want to give you, the specifics of what we're purchasing in there.
It looked like the big change from last year was intersection cameras.
Check if that's, is that a minor? Yeah,
that's a
so,
minor.
yeah, so
I guess because
we
they're
have,
under the threshold.
that's 110,000, I believe, for the intersection cameras. So we have 25 intersection cameras up in the township right now. They are, God, they've been 10 years, 8 to 10 years they've been up, and they're breaking down, they're old equipment. So we actually have intersection cameras that are not functioning. Plus, we haven't added any in those 8 to 10 years. So we're adding 10 more intersection cameras. Those are another piece of equipment that we find extremely valuable tool when crime's committed, that we're able to go back to those intersections and pull the cars that have gone through. We're also, because we have dispatch or communications operators in the building 24/7, when an incident happens, they're able to get on those intersection cameras right away. And in some cases, hit and runs, thefts. So if you're at Street Nights and there's a theft at Kohl's, you know, we get a description, but the officer might not be in that area. The community service communications operator can get on that camera right away and give us the location. Many times they're heading south into Philadelphia. So,
Okay, you've answered the question. Let me go on to the
Yeah,
next one.
sorry.
Okay? Salaries and benefits. You have 2019 budget of $657,000, and now you're at 2020 budget, it's $611,000.
which line
Why
item are you
less?
at?
You were at benefits, salaries, 41,400.
41,400.
The very
yeah.
first one, the very first one. You have the budget 2019, $657,100, and the 2020 budget is only
Fire line.
That's the fire one, that's it.
Oh, you're in fire now?
It's upper right here.
I did get the fire. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm looking in police.
I looked at that too, and I realized it was the budget.
I'm sorry, can you tell me the
I'm
line
asking how
item?
you
again?
hired 2 officers and then.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
But it's the fire people.
All right, well, that's you too, anyway, but okay.
41,400?
Yeah,
Yes,
So you're asking why the decrease?
yes. How can it be when we're having more people on staff?
There was a position in that budget for years that we held, that we never filled, so it was removed from the budget because it was a position that we didn't use.
Okay,
So that's why you
good.
see a decrease.
All right, that's good. And then, since you're on Public Safety Fire Department, then how about when you go to, I think it's vehicle purchase,
Yeah,
47,610,
Yeah.
vehicle purchase, you're going from, well, you're going up to a considerable amount.
so the
Place
special
them out.
service vehicle is, Special Service 222 is a 2011 vehicle. And this is, obviously, I'm not a mechanic. I work very closely with our Public Works Department and Brian Guay, who's our chief mechanic. And I'm told that vehicle is on its last legs. There's leaks. It's ruining equipment because a lot of the compartments are leaking. Some of the compartments no longer lock. And I'm told it's on its last leg. So I had talked to the mayor about this, about putting a new vehicle in the budget to keep that special service vehicle out on the street.
What type of vehicle is this?
It's a pickup truck, if you will, but it's a fire pickup truck. It has a lot of their equipment for car accidents and rescue and things of that nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I got it, 85,000.
and Fred, we saved some money on putting, you got to correct me, because I was at the open house at the rescue squad, and they said the mechanic there put some of the new ambulances, or newer ambulance equipment on old chassis or something?
Well,
In order
yes,
to-
but there's no EMS in this budget.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, but that, you're correct.
Yeah.
Well, the Public Works Department here is amazing. We will keep a vehicle on the street as long as it's mechanically sound and does its job. And we
Yeah, I was
have-
wondering if they did that for the fire people too.
Yeah, we have vehicles, we have police department vehicles with over 100,000 miles. The average police car only lasts 30 to 50,000 miles and 3 to 5 years. And we're getting 8, 9 years and 100, 110, 120,000 miles. We have police cars out there with 120,000 miles on them.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
I guess I'll continue. Thanks for the presentation.
Quite welcome.
Question regarding the presentation that you had displayed. You were looking at square miles as far as comparing with the number of officers. Did you consider, and the reason why I'm asking is I actually did a little research of my own as far as just trying to understand what the reasonable amount of police officers should be per square foot, or I was actually looking at population.
Right.
And the other reason why I say that is because you look at maybe up in the Poconos, whereas you have a larger square footage footprint, but yet, the population obviously isn't like Bensalem. So then I don't know if that would necessarily justify with the number of officers up there.
Right.
So I guess the question is, why are you looking at square footage versus population?
We're both together.
Or both, correct?
Well, we look at square footage. Obviously, you can see Lancaster City was only 7.4
Square miles.
square miles. And I believe, if I don't have that in front of me, but I believe the populations, obviously Middletown is less, Bristol Township is a little less, Lancaster, I forget what their population is, but you can't get exactly apples for apples because there is no other Bensalem, exactly what we have, especially with our daytime population. So those are the towns that we looked at that we felt certainly that was as close to us as possible, that we compared.
From square miles, but why not looking at townships that have 60, 65,000 people that reside?
Well, there's a lot of other things to take into consideration. Our daytime population is the 250,000, plus some of the stuff that we have here. Parks Casino is the second highest grossing casino on the East Coast of the United States, our major thoroughfare. So it was very hard to compare apples to apples with that. It's the best that we thought we could do. That's just what we picked.
I think both of them together would be a good barometer of what's happening. And then add to that what you just said. In addition to that, we have the casino, we have 250,000 vehicles going through Bensalem, that type of a thing, but I understand what he's saying.
And we border, people can't write that off. We border Philadelphia. That is certainly an issue.
You had noted there was a reduction in crime and some instances, I think it was robbery and so forth. What were you attributing that to?
My great leadership.
Okay, perfect.
What are the other 300 officers?
Councilman Kisselbeck, I knew you would ask that. A lot of it I attributed to, one of the key things is certainly our DNA project. I attributed that to. I also attributed to the accountability that we have on the street with the supervision. When I first became director in 2006, on a Friday night in Bensalem, when the Chamonix Mall, was busy back then, and we had some other things going on. This was just parks coming into play. You can have 25 with detectives and narcotics doing their thing. You can have 25 officers on the street with one supervisor. That is just not enough. That is a recipe for disaster. Working with the mayor and the township manager and finance at the time, I was able to get the proper supervision that I felt that was recommended by, the federal standards of, no more than, 3 to 5 to 7 people should one person supervise. And I attribute a lot of that to the supervision, to some of the projects, the DDACs, the data-driven approaches to traffic safety and crime prevention and traffic safety. And it's another whole study behind that. But the training, all officers get the best training that they could be. We will send them to a school that will give them the expertise. We try to find what the niches that officers like. Some cops like working drugs. Some cops like working DUIs. Some like doing other, whatever their niche is. We make sure that they're well trained and that they're going to go out there and have the tools necessary to give you those numbers. But really, one of the biggest things is our DNA project.
Okay.
And Fred, not to interrupt, but I think I could be wrong, but your increase in drug arrest decreases retail theft and also burglaries, I think, because, you're arresting people who otherwise would be retail theft.
Yeah.
And
Mr. President, you're right on the money with that. If you're going to see arrests go up, we talk about this. We meet every week, our command staff, to talk about crime trends, where we need to put resources, deploy people, what we need to do. And eventually, next year when I'm before you, the numbers, we're getting below some really low numbers now in crime. And I'm like, wow, what else can we do? Eventually, we're not going to be able to get that low. We're not going to be able to get much lower because there's always going to be some sort of crime. If we can get much lower, I'm going to get on the speaking circuit for $100,000 an hour and teach our philosophy to everybody. But we're seeing some incredible numbers. But you're absolutely right. That's what drives crime down as well.
No problem. You noted the school district. We have roughly 4 years left that they're
Yes,
going to
sir.
cover the resource officer. Are you looking at any long-term plans as far as how we're going to fiscally manage that situation at that point?
We always, we're looking at grants. I'm working on some grants right now for 2020. We're constantly looking for funding. The problem with a lot of those grants is they won't sustain a program. They'll only give you seed money. And I get it, the federal government and the state, they'll normally give you maybe 2 to 3 years of seed money. We got our seed money years ago after Columbine for the high school and the middle school. We got a 2-year grant and then a 4-year grant. So we're going to wind up having to either work with the school district on that or sustain it ourselves. Unless something happens where the tides turn from pre-Columbine, but it doesn't look that way in the near future. As we get, unless we get a handle on mental health and some of the things going on in our society, active shooters is not something that's going to go away anytime soon.
Okay. And then you also noted looking to hire 2 new officers. Can
Yes, sir.
you go into a little bit more detail? Or I'm assuming they're new heads, new count versus replacement?
Yeah, the new are new, not replacement. We're at full complement right now. We're at full,
With the 2 additional new?
not with the 2 additional for 2020. You didn't vote on that yet.
Okay.
So I can't yet.
Okay.
I said. I can't hire until January 1. So that would bring us up 2, and I think that will be okay. So the guys and gals that work here are just amazing. The stuff they do for union employees, working outside their contract, changing their hours, doing things, you don't find that in other townships. We'll be okay with the 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
God, don't keep...
Now, Fred, did you hire replacements this year?
Yes, sir.
No, and I think he hired replacements this year, 'cause we saw pictures of new people getting sworn in, so I think
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
That was
These are 2 additions.
replacements for this year.
Okay, got it, all right. The Voyager, I know that was a line item for $75,000. Can you go into a little bit more detail on that?
Voyager is an analytical software to help us deal with the current climate of crime. As far as I talked about in the presentation, the internet is the new crime scene. I really don't feel comfortable talking about Voyager in an open forum.
Okay,
I've
that's
certainly-
fine, understood.
Yeah.
When we look at those types of programs, I mean, what kind of bid process are you going through? Is there any other competitive companies out there that you're looking at? Obviously, just looking at making sure that we're getting the best bang for our dollar.
Many of the programs that are in the budget are sole source. I comply with everything, all the regulations within our finance department. If it's over a certain amount of money, you got to get 3 quotes. If it's over a certain amount of money, you got to get 3 bids. You have to bid it out, as you well know. And there's only a couple exceptions to that, and one is a sole source product or emergency situation. I don't know if there's a third one or not. Those are the basic 2. But we are in compliance. We don't possess this yet, so anything that we do purchase in 2020 will be in compliance with the finance department.
Okay.
The third is like state programs like
Oh,
CoStars,
couldn't think of it.
and there's national programs
Yeah.
where basically the state does a state bidding process, and then we can piggyback off.
Like our cars. I don't have to have Ford submit bids. The state has a contract. I couldn't remember the third one.
Can you just go into just a couple line item questions? And my one question, this goes along a couple different line items, and I'm going to note the overtime, the labor attorney, what else? There was another one. Criminal investigation. I noticed just from the actual for September 2019 to what you're projecting, like for example, just looking at the overtime, you're at 674. You're still projecting close to 1.1, and you're looking at a difference over 3 months of roughly $420,000. Are you expecting to hit that dollar amount?
Which one?
Within
You're looking
3
at
months?
overtime or reimbursed overtime?
Salary overtime, 41,800.
41,800.
Yeah, I'm looking now.
How did you come up with the 1.1 number?
The $1 million number is something, we always build on the percentage of the salary increases every year, and as years go on, they've increased. We've never, I can't remember, in 13 years that I've been doing this, that we said next year is going to be a big overtime number. So it creeps up every year, the 3%, the 4%, whatever their contractual raises are. So that number just slowly creeps up. I think the question I heard, unless is what our actuals were for the end of September.
The question, Director, is you're at 674 as of 9/30.
Right.
Okay, all right,
So-
we're projecting an additional $415,000 increase just in 3 months.
Right.
I'm not questioning the validity
No.
of needing it, I'm just questioning whether or not
Why is there
we're-
so much in the last
Sure,
quarter?
yeah, so I do that. So
okay.
I put because as Fred always mentions, they get one case, one huge homicide, whatever, it costs a lot of money. Do I expect us to be at the $1 million at the end of the year? No, I do not. Reimbursable, the particular line you're speaking to, the $1 million, that's reimbursable over time. So there will be offsets coming from federal narcotics and different state programs that we have that we will reimburse the general fund for. They're shown in the revenue lines. But for overtime, and I do it in a majority of a lot of the lines, I put it at budget just because Fred could get, God forbid, he could get a couple major incidents and we could be at budget at the end of the year. So
Okay.
that's the main reason.
That's going to be a consistent question I have this evening as far as, so John, are you responsible for determining that projection as through the year end for all
Yes.
of the fund balances?
For all of the salary and benefits, I confer with the department heads. Unless we know that there's a position that's not filled or something to that extent, we will, show it under it. We will show it not being at budget or something like that. But we sit down with the department heads and go through what they feel the projection is. But usually with overtime, we do put it at the cap just because we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's why I also noted it wasn't just overtime. It was the labor attorney, criminal investigation.
Again,
There were a number of
yeah.
line items that were set at that budget threshold when we very well may not hit that.
Absolutely. So labor attorney is only through August, because obviously professionals always usually run about a month behind on their billings anyway. So his numbers, the labor attorney's number is actually only through August. However, again, Fred gets one grievance, that one officer is very unhappy and gets one grievance, and it could certainly blow something way out.
We can certainly ask him tonight and make sure.
Let me make a note on this also. We have the 2019 budget, and you have the 2020 budget, and there's only an $82,000 difference between the actual budgets. And what John had just said is exactly true, that the actual date of September 30th, from September 30th to December, could be one specific case, it would jolt it accordingly, but according to the actual budget proposals, I see an $82,000
And
difference.
I'm not disagreeing with that, and I did a summary, which we can discuss a little later after.
Can I ask one question? John, I just want to clarify too, that say you say $1 million for the overtime, it's the top of the budget. If that money's not spent, what happens to that money? It doesn't get spent somewhere else, what happens?
It's returned to the fund balance.
It's returned to the fund.
Yeah, and it would roll over to
So
the
it's
following year.
budgeted in case there's an overtime situation, a crisis, God forbid a shooting or a major drug arrest or something, and then if that's not used, it goes back into the general fund.
Correct. And to piggyback on what Fred had said as well, he was correct in his statement. The $1,087,000 to the 1.1, it is just the contractual increase. Every year, we just add the contractual increase to it.
Okay.
Yeah, we like to operate that, we know the money's there, but we're very careful not to spend it. But also, if, God forbid, November, I wound up with $50,000 left, now I got a problem. So we don't work crimes, we don't send people to court, so I'm really stuck. So I'd rather be able to return the money than not have enough money to do the job. You're getting it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just the last thing, on the police, can you just go over some of the larger dollar purchases that you're looking at for the vehicles?
Sure. So this year, our motorcycles are in a rotation, so we're getting 2 new motorcycles. Not 2 new, we're replacing 2 motorcycles. And the other police motorcycles get pretty top dollar on your trade-in, so that's why we keep replacing them. I think it's after 3 or 5 years, we replace the motorcycles, and we send the other ones back. And then we have 2 unmarked cars and 5 marked cars that we're purchasing this year.
Are they also replacement?
We're not adding to the fleet, so it's cars that are no longer being able to be utilized depending on their mileage. So some vehicles are just taken out of service. We're not adding. We've stayed pretty consistent around the 90 total vehicles from the fire police to every other car out there that we have. So we've been staying pretty consistent in 90. So you're not going to see next year 95, 96, 97 cars. So we stay in that. It's normally replacements.
And I think we do something with those vehicles that we're not using any longer.
They go to they go to auction through
I
the
remember
So,
last year.
two things happen. One, the mechanics keep them and strip them as much as they can to the point where they get every dollar out of it, to the point where we possibly just scrap it, or we will put it on public auction as well.
Okay.
I have a question, too.
Yes, sir.
The discretion of the department head. Within your own department, what leeway do you have in terms of transferring budget money from one item to another item?
I can't transfer without permission of the administration.
Okay.
Was that your question?
That answers my question,
Oh, yes.
absolutely.
Regardless of dollar amount?
I can't move $1 without those three individuals knowing about it.
Okay. And then on the fire, the principal payment.
I'm sorry, you're on fire?
Yeah, I'm on the fire.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'll answer that if you don't mind.
Sure.
So in previous years, we would always just stick the annual payment for the fire engine in as vehicle purchases. Well,
Yeah.
with the GASB regulation changes, we now have to itemize our principal and our interest payments. So if you notice that in 2019, we have budgeted $41,900.
Yep.
It's now zero because we moved it down to the interest and principal payments. It's on a 10-year repayment plan, and I believe we have 5 more years on it.
Yeah, it's
I believe so.
At least over halfway.
Yeah, 4 or 5 more years on that.
You know the
on that.
balance on it?
I don't, but I could get it for you.
Okay. I had a question on the special service, but that was also answered. I'm good for now if we want to, I know there's
Yeah,
others
I've
that
got
have questions.
Okay.
handful of questions.
Yeah.
The total salary and benefits, it looks like it's an increase in the 2020 budget from the 2019 of about $2.2 million. How much of that is contractual and how much of that is, like you said, like overtime, which is kind of budgeted based on what you expect or along those lines?
Well, salary and benefits, everything is, besides those two line items, the reimbursed overtime and the regular overtime, and actually overtime in general is contractual, depending on, if an officer's called in for 15 minutes, they're guaranteed a minimum of 2 hours.
Okay.
Some departments, they guarantee them 8 hours. So hopefully the union president's not sitting here today, so that's good. So that's all contractual, that entire
That whole
grouping.
section. And the increase is contractual as well?
Yes, the
Okay,
increase is
that's
all
what I thought.
contractual, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
the only other thing I will mention to point out is, and you'll see it across all the departments, the pension funds. So we are contributing, so every year the state puts out a minimum municipal obligation, which I read to you every year as what our contribution limits are. That's the minimum that we have to contribute to the pension. Our actuarialists assume that the market should do 7.5% on our investments. That will help to sustain, along with our municipal obligation, to sustain the funds. Well, obviously, when the markets were in the downturn, we weren't making 7.5% on our pension investments. Employees still contribute. We've always contributed the minimum municipal obligation. We're now at a point where we want to contribute a little bit over the minimum municipal obligation, just to start catching up on those years where the pension plans weren't achieving that 7.5%.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the only,
That's the
everything
only-
else is
We're talking about
contractual.
police salaries, right? Police salaries?
Yeah, yeah. There's a new line item here for computer upgrades. Looks like in the past, everything was lumped into computer tech support and equipment. Now, some line items got broken out into this new. Can you explain why that was different? And I saw this really kind of across the board with all
Yep.
the departments.
It was me. So the reason we segregated everything, again, it has to do with fixed asset tracking. So we had a discussion last year, well, I guess 2019, I'm sorry, where we wanted to make it easier for the tracking of additional fixed assets, capital assets that we're purchasing that are computer related, that we can track as a fixed asset. So anything new that's not a maintenance agreement or anything like that, where it's new hardware, software, whatever, that's going in the computer upgrades line. Computer tech support is mainly for renewals on maintenance contracts, and then just the minor stuff, peripheral stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. there's a couple, in the details, it's pretty consistent with the 2019 budget. There's one line item, though, that is duplicated in both computer upgrades and computer tech support. It's in the detailed budgets,
Yeah.
the docking stations. Is that intentional?
Now, yeah, that is intentional. They're not the same, and well, actually, when we reviewed this with my staff the other day, just to go over it again, because I prepared this, I don't know, months ago, I think. It's two different types. One is repairs, and one is new, the docking stations. I checked with my IT folks, Kurt, and it's separated out that way because one is new stuff and one is repairing old stuff. So stuff breaks in the car, so.
But it's the same cost to repair the old ones?
Yeah, they separated.
Are they replacing them?
They're replacing, but it's new, and I don't know why they do it that
I
way.
know it's like 20 docking stations in both
Yeah,
sections.
I said the same thing when we did it, and it's just the way it worked out. He looked at it, he said it was just a coincidence.
Okay.
But it's not the same thing twice.
Okay,
That I'm assuring you, it's not the same
Okay,
thing
no,
twice.
I'm glad
Yeah,
you-
it is, it's strange.
okay. That's fine. And then things like the modems and stuff, which is, again, it's a repeat from the 2019 budget. Do we just kind of cycle through and replace some of them
Modems
every
get
year,
upgrades.
or-
I know, we have a lot of 3G, we're going to 4G, so
Yeah,
he's.
but I mean, last year in the budget, it was 4G too, so
Yeah.
that's kind of why I'm,
Yeah, well, I think it was typed in 3, mine said 3, what I
Okay.
saw, but it's just upgrades and replacement of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually, because you start talking too much computer stuff, it gets a little bit beyond me, but
No, that's okay.
the cars are so technical now, everything's, the in-car cameras, the body cameras are all hooked into the car, the computers are in the car, the ticketing system is now all computerized in the car.
License
Some-
plate readers.
What's that?
License plate readers.
Oh, license plate readers are in the car, so everything is computerized. The car is a walking,
Office.
yeah, well, it's all electronic, the whole thing is.
That's right, they were explaining during the open house, like sometimes the officer has to tap the camera to go on, but if he's in an emergency situation, like when his sirens go on and the cameras automatically go on.
Some of the stuff all clicks on automatically, depending on if he's drawing his taser or drawing a weapon. These
Right,
are
that
all,
automatically
it's all
goes on.
reading
So he
each
draws
other.
his weapon, his camera goes on.
Cameras will go on.
That's good.
There's all kinds of, the lights, the cameras go on.
Right.
So it's just.
Right.
So he can't say, I forgot to put it on or whatever, if he pulled his.
No, you'd have to deliberately shut it off, and we
okay.
monitor it all the time. And there's certain rules when you could shut it off depending on the case. Certainly, when we're in hospitals and interviewing, they might shut it off, and
Yeah.
I don't want to get too specific.
No,
but,
emergency though,
yeah.
yeah.
okay. Speaking of license plate readers, there's 3 in the budget this year.
Yeah.
Are we expanding the fleet, or are they replacements?
Now, we're going to explain them. We find them to be extremely useful.
Yeah, I've witnessed it during a.
Did we get you?
No.
No.
That's on the other side.
He was looking for you.
That's a fair question. That's fine. I earned that.
On the record, I do not have Councilman Sloan pre-programmed to get a license plate reader. It's a good idea, though, Councilman Tuckmajian.
Going over a speed bump.
Now, you mentioned just before that, you can't spend any money, over budget. But there's a line item here for major equipment. It's, I think, 47,600 phone. There was $0 budgeted in 2019, but expenditures of, approximately $20,000.
I can't do transfers without.
No, I figure that
Which
was
line
an
item?
approved
Yeah.
transfer. It's down at the bottom of the page.
That was when we did the phone increase, or the phone upgrade within the township building itself.
Oh, okay.
So, what
That's-
Fred had to take money from his budget, from his lines to fund the upgrade of the phone system. The only reason why it wasn't pre-planned was, according to IT, a couple of the boards went down,
Yeah.
and we knew that our system was getting older, and we knew that the parts were becoming harder to find, but it was like, we were told at that point, like, you need to get a new system. So that's
Kind of
why.
like an emergency, let's just.
Yeah, it was state contract was the company that we had used.
Okay.
But that's why it wasn't pre-budgeted in the system.
Okay.
But Fred had to find the money in his budget to fund his portion of the.
Okay, so you just kind of transferred it from other line items?
Yeah, the budget, we don't
There's
go
no
elsewhere.
extra
There's
money.
nowhere else
That's-
extra money. So we have to cut somewhere else to
Okay.
find the money.
John, was that across the board too as well, with the other departments?
Yeah, it was between, police department paid for theirs, and then capital improvement fund paid for the remaining, this side of the building,
Okay.
and public works.
I just have a few more questions. You know, we talked a little bit before about the vehicle purchases. I just noted that it's the exact same dollar amount and the exact same number of vehicles and type as last year.
Yeah.
Is that, you're just kind of going
Yeah,
a
the-
systematic approach of
the-
replacing
Yeah, the vehicles, I don't.
aging fleet?
I don't, but yeah, it's
Okay,
not an
that's fine.
addition. We have 91 vehicles total.
No,
You will
that's
not
okay.
see 92 next year.
And then on the fire budget, there's the fireman's incentive and retention line item.
That's the stipend that they get.
That's the stipend.
Yeah.
Okay, not the EIT refund, right?
No,
Okay.
I don't know where that is.
The EIT refund would, so that comes out of, the EIT refunds, just double check, I'm pretty sure it comes out of the fire fund itself. Nope, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, the EIT refunds, they just net off of our EIT collections. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a line for
Okay.
it.
All right,
So
that's fine.
whatever Keystone collects, they pay the refunds, the same as if a kid that made less than $8,000 sought a refund as well.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you very much, Director.
Thank
Okay,
you.
is there any other questions from council?
Thank you very much for
You're
your time.
65% of our budget, you took 70% of our time, but that's all right. But that's all right.
He said 65.
So the next director to be up is our newly appointed Director of Public Works, Dennis Hunt. He's on multiple pages, but we'll start on page 14. That's the general fund, actual Public Works Department budget.
Well, thank you, Director Herrera, for such a short presentation. Hopefully, I can be as exciting and lengthy as his. Good evening, Council, Mr. President, and Mayor. On behalf of myself, my beautiful wife, Megan, and our precious daughter, Lily, I want to thank you all for the opportunity that you have given me first and foremost, because this is my first time in front of Council, so I really want to express my thank yous to that. It's been a hectic, very enjoyable transitioning period and getting myself acclimated to fill in the shoes of my esteemed predecessor, Mr. Jim Ryan. Been some bumps in the road, but I've come through it, I think, pretty much unscathed. At this time, I'm here to take any questions you may have concerning the 2020 Public Works budget. Please know that I may have to defer to Mr. Chakowski to ensure that your inquiry is properly answered, but I'll do my best.
Mr. Hunt, I have really just one question with respect to major equipment. It looks like we're replacing some of the older stuff. It's a significant investment. Do we know what the expected lifespan is for the new equipment? And how long will this buy us until we have to
Well,
go
if
through
you
another round of
notice, some of the
replacements?
notes that I had in the budget, primarily, most of these equipment that we're replacing is a minimum of 12 years to 20 years of age.
I did notice that.
So we are getting as much bang for our buck out of our equipment as I can. I like to piggyback what Director Herron says, and yes, we do take well care of our equipment because it is our backbone.
Absolutely, and I've got nothing but high praises for your department. You know, they do a great job, especially now as we enter the winter season, taking care of the roads for everybody.
Yes.
And I guess I'm really just wondering, are we going to get another 12 to 20 years out of this equipment, or is it built to last?
It is our intent to get further.
Okay.
Okay, do you have, you hired an assistant,
Correct. Tim Schultz,
assistant
correct.
Public Works Director this year? And then, is there any new employees in this budget besides that for this year, for next year?
Yes, we're slated for one more employee. It's nothing new. It's just infilling an open space that's been there a while.
Okay.
Regarding the major equipment, also, you have, you're going from $40,000 in the budget to $147,000. So what equipment is that inclusive of?
Well, there's a couple things that we'll be getting. Let me go through my stuff here.
If I can answer it real quick. So we're purchasing a new interstate tractor, which is the large tractor. You'll see it cut in the open fields. It's $132,000. Current one's 19 years old and has 8,600 hours on it. Obviously, they run by hours, not mileage or anything like that. And then there's two new X-Mark mowers, each costing around $7,500. One's from 2005, one's from 2006. Both of the decks are rusting, and the estimate repairs on them are between $4,000 and $7,000 on each of them anyway, so you might as well just buy brand new at this point. So that's,
What was the first one? Cost?
it was the interstate tractor. It's those large, the
What
wing
was the
tractors.
cost?
$132,000.
That's what you said, okay. Yeah. I believe you.
One tractor.
You good?
That is 147, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one quick one. How many total employees are underneath you, Mr. Hunt?
Our total employee is 24. That's including myself and the assistant director.
And we had gotten 2 salt sheds under the previous leader there. Are your salt purchases for the winter already purchased at a discounted rate?
Yes,
That
sir.
was all?
Several weeks ago, I took delivery of 600 tons of salt in preparation for the oncoming season.
Okay, because in the past, like before you were here, we would get caught up in running out of salt and having to pay,
Yeah, that
pirate
is something
prices, I would
Director
say.
Ryan emphasized to me as he brought me in under his
But
wing.
you're full. Okay, good.
They're out salting tonight, right?
Yeah, yes, sir, they are.
Okay, is there any other questions for Mr. Hunt? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you.
Are there more areas?
Do you have several other pages?
I'm sorry, additional.
Street lights
I'm
and
sorry.
things like that?
Sorry about that, I'm sorry. Okay,
Excuse
good.
me?
Street lights and other items
Yeah,
such
one
as
of
that.
We're going to turn page 16 for streetlights.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Mr. Chakowski, this might be a question for you.
I was just going to say, there's one thing I wanted to point out with, maybe we can-
Probably the obvious, the real estate taxes.
The real estate taxes, yes. So with real estate taxes, through the budget process, we have the availability to reallocate millage. Years ago, the streetlight fund had received additional millage from the debt service fund. And what we did with that was, it was due to the aging of the streetlights, we needed to add additional money into this fund. So what we're doing, obviously, since we've done the LED upgrade program, all the lights are new now at this point. They're all being monitored via wireless technology. So it saves a lot of wear and tear on the lights at this point that we're not having. They're all warranted. They're, we're not having the cost that we were having before. What we're looking to do is move $500,000 from streetlight to the road machinery fund, which can be found on page 22. $500,000 is approximately $300,000. What we're looking to make, the reason for doing that is the road machinery program was always at 0.05 mil. So it was basically only ever receiving roughly $30,000 a year. There is the fleet is getting older, the trucks are getting older. While we can use liquid fuels money to purchase new dump trucks and items like that, there are certain items that we can't use liquid fuels money, so it's either the general fund would eat the cost, or the road machinery fund. So for next year, we are looking to make a purchase of a jet truck. So we all know the issues with our storm sewers. We all know the issues of backing up. The storm sewers get a lot of trash, they get a lot of debris, they get a lot of silt buildup within them. So we're looking to make a purchase for a new jet truck for a jet truck next year. That truck you'll see in the major equipment line on page 22 is approximately $390,000. That truck would then be utilized by the Public Works staff to start addressing some of our infrastructure, because the silt will also cause the infrastructure to collapse sooner than normal because of this silt buildup. It'll rust it out sooner and everything like that.
Might add to that, that we've had to hire outside companies to do that. Very, very, very expensive.
Do you know about how much it has cost to rent out those services?
Yeah.
Just comparatively.
Do you remember what because we had to use them this year?
Off the top of my head, it was about $60,000 this year.
Okay.
And that was for like
That
three or
was
four
very
locations.
minimal usages, but it's right around $3,500 for every 8 hours,
Yeah,
if I'm not
yep.
mistaken.
That one alone.
Yeah, one particular spot we did it was on Dunksferry Road.
Yes.
When we were looking at all the state road drainage issues and everything like that, because that's all upstream from the Columbus Country Club. So when we cleaned that out, they were there for over a week, and it was very expensive to do it.
Have you identified locations where we can, assuming that this does go through and we do purchase this, have you identified a decent number of locations where this can be used so we can really get our money's worth out of it at this point?
Yeah, they're working on a schedule for it to
We're
be.
working to figure out the most problematic areas, and of course, it would behoove us to just go ahead and do a full program with it once the
Yeah,
weather
that's what I'm thinking. Okay.
allows us.
And it prevents damage, you're saying, for the future, so there could be repair
It'll help
work.
prolong the
You save money in
infrastructure for
repair work
sure.
too, besides the cleaning out, you would save future
Oh,
repair work.
absolutely,
And I
absolutely.
know
Maintain them properly.
The demo that I got from the guy was wonderful, that we spent almost all day over on Pascagoula doing various inlets and.
Now, is there any risk of collapsing any of the pipes as you're cleaning it out, causing a collapse?
John?
Well, I guess there's always that cause, sometimes that
I mean,
crud.
is
At this
there
point, we
there's
haven't
debris and
Could
stuff
be
that
the
is
glue holding
literally
everything together, but,
I hope not.
yeah, I guess there's always that chance, but it could also,
It's gonna
as
be
we
a
had
problem.
many sinkholes open throughout the summertime, we get those big heavy rainstorms and the inlets and they just
If that's
get a
the case,
pinhole
it's
leak
gonna
and
have
it
to be
just
addressed anyway.
undermines the entire street.
I think we actually got a complaint for one of them off of Bristol Road, the train station there. Yeah, sewer, yeah, so it could very well.
We get a lot of it. A lot of times we try to get Bucks County to come in and help us. And sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. It's a big problem. It's becoming a major problem here now.
Okay.
Do we have any, is there any problem with ownership of the storm sewer piping and us being able to go in and clean it out and stuff?
It's ours. It's our infrastructure.
It's our
Storm sewer pipes
infrastructure,
are
we
our
just
infrastructure.
don't own the surface anymore, is that what it is?
So storm sewer is your rain gutters. So yeah, that was always ours.
Okay, got it.
There was a line item for major equipment purchase for $60,000. It doesn't look like we actually used that. And if I recollect, I think that might have been a dump truck from last year.
Yeah, so the reason we did not make that purchase is they were able to repurpose a chassis and just get a bed that they were able to take out of either liquid fuels or one of the other funds. So as well as knowing that we were looking to do this program for the 2020 budget, we decided not to use any of the money because we're obviously using some of the fund balance to fund this truck for next year as well.
Okay.
Just to make you aware, I know, get this thing on. To make you aware, one of the biggest problems we had down there is when they go out salting, these trucks have to be washed down completely because what the salt does to the truck itself, the frames and everything under them, it destroys them. And if those trucks aren't taken care of, which I know that they're meant to do down there all the time, they wouldn't last 3 years. That's how bad it is. I remember on the farm, we used to use a lot of nitrates, salt nitrates that we used to spread. They would eat cast iron, that just, if you don't wash it off immediately. So that's a big item that they have to stay on top of.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, one of the reasons we had sold the water department years ago is because of the aging pipe system and the amount of capital improvement they have to put in there. We would never been able to afford it as opposed to being, combined with all the other townships and municipalities and such in the area. Unfortunately, we have the same problem with the sewerage system with the pipes, but who wants to buy that system? I say nobody. So we're stuck with that problem.
Back on the streetlights, the salaries look like they are projected to exceed the 2019 budget. but then we're gonna decrease for 2020?
Yeah, so that was the retirement for Jim Ryan.
Jim's retirement and the
yes.
overlap.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jim Ryan's retirement, the overlap, and then obviously the change in the salaries is what the decrease is.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions on this page.
So yeah, we'll move to page.
Wait, hold on, I've got a
sorry.
few more questions. The public utility service for the streetlights,
Yep.
looks like it's gone down somewhat. Is that the reflection due to the change to LED?
Yeah, so Pico is still up. So
It doesn't look like a huge savings.
it's not a huge savings yet. So what happened with the LED program is all the lights have been converted. The system is up and running. We're still working out some issues with the monitoring software, which is why we haven't paid the entire bill yet. However, the installer, when they would provide the list to Pico, there are two individuals that handle the streetlight account for the entire company of Pico. So you can see that it takes quite a while for these lights to get switched over. And the way a Pico bill works is each light isn't individually metered. So you pay a per light cost. So they're in the process of, as well as you pay a per unit cost for a 38 watt Cobra versus a 38 watt LED, or the comparison of the two. There's different pricing for it. So Pico's still working on that, which is why we haven't reduced our utility bill, even though we see it coming down, because we haven't hit that bottom, this is your good number now. There's also conversation, to get technical, I've learned way too much than I wanted to know about streetlights. There's taps on a streetlight, so you can daisy chain multiple lights together, one tap, one cost, sorry. There are issues with that now with Pico as well. So there's issues that the installer and Pico are trying to consistently work out along with our input, as well as everyone that was involved in the entire program with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning, or Regional
Now,
Planning Commission, sorry.
will those savings be retroactive?
Yes, so we've seen some of those savings come back to us
Okay,
already.
so we'll see more in the future, and then it'll kind of balance out.
Exactly. And we actually are receiving our rebates. A part of the program was we would receive rebates for doing the LED program. We've started receiving those rebates as well. They're very minimal, so we have that going for us. And then there was something else I was just going to say. When we originally did the borrowing, we had X number of lights that we were replacing. There were some lights that we took out of the program just because when we started looking into the conversion kits, like the amphitheater lighting, when we started looking into the conversion kits, one, they either couldn't find them or there was no easy way to make the light work. So we'll see some savings coming back from the actual borrowing that we could just roll back into the loan payment if we wanted to.
Okay. And then there was streetlights on Hansel Drive. We were supposed to do it in 2019.
Yep.
It never happened.
It did not happen. It is scheduled. I believe you've done the site survey for Hansel Drive as a preliminary at this point, so
Correct.
it sounds
We
like
did
it's going to be a
reach out to Armored
2020.
for that survey.
Okay, so we are doing it in 2020?
That's the plan.
Do we know
yes.
why it didn't get done in 2019?
I think it was more because of the upgrade with the LED and the issues that we were having. We didn't want to take on any new lighting with it until we
Okay.
could kind of get that whole situation settled.
But it's getting done now.
That's the plan.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, so, want to go on to the next page, or?
Yep, so page 22, does anyone have any other follow-up questions on road machinery on page 22 before we move on from that one? I mean, that's very cut and dry. Yeah, it's just one small purchase out of there.
We'll talk about that pretty soon.
And then page 26 is our state highway aid fund, which is classified as liquid fuels.
Okay, any questions in reference to this state highway aid fund? Basically, where's this money from?
This is provided by the state of Pennsylvania through the The gas tax, thank you. Through the gas tax, it is audited by the state every year. You guys will all see the audit reports. Never had an issue, thank God, through the work of Public Works and my staff accountant, Danielle Kimmel. We monitor that fund closely to make sure that everything that we're purchasing is adequate and acceptable by the state. We also pay for our winter maintenance, which is snow removal, out of this fund. We use this money first. Should we need to exceed this fund, then we have money budgeted in the Public Works line in general fund as well, as we have in past years. And then we also have the availability to transfer, if our employees do work on state highways, we have, as well as inlets and stuff like that, we have the availability to offset their wages using liquid fuels money, which transfers back to general fund, which you can see is $669,000 for 2020.
Okay, yeah, we had asked about that. Okay, any questions about this item? Is there another page that he's responsible?
No, that's it for,
That's it.
oh yeah, I'm sorry, there is one more page, thank you. Page 10, which is, we're skipping backwards, sorry. That's the municipal budget, which is our facility manager is overseen by Director Hunt. There is, his budget is on page 10, and any questions on this one? What you will see in, so in previous years, you would have seen in this budget recarpeting for the hallways and stuff like that. If you look at the capital improvement fund on page 23, you will see a line at the top, administration wing building improvements, for $40,000 for next year. What that is for is we are recarpeting the council chambers, because this is the original carpeting from when the building was first built, the hallway on the administration side, as well as our building and planning department. They still have the original carpeting as well. So we are finally doing it. We got our last cleaning this year, and it was not to the likes of our facilities manager, so we are going to replace the carpet. And because we are doing such a larger purchase, I can capitalize it, so therefore it's coming out of capital improvement fund.
Now, hasn't this been planned for a couple of years?
It has, and for a couple of
You've
years
just been able to stretch it? And
he's been cleaning, well, it's all glued, so there's no stretching.
I meant
but stretching the lifespan, yes.
Stretching the carpet.
Sorry, but he gets it cleaned a couple times a year, and he was always happy with it, but this year he said, that's it. It's not, the stains aren't lifting, or they're coming back a day later.
So are we taking that out of the line item in the general fund municipal budget?
No, we moved it to our capital improvement fund.
Is there still the same $85,000 that was budgeted last year in that line item?
Just see what
For
he's
building repairs and maintenance?
Yeah, I think the 85,000 is just the number that we give to him should something happen within the budget, within the town, the building itself. But let me just double check. I don't think he has anything special.
Yeah, because it was 85 in 2019.
Yep.
We spent 44.5 and projected 59.
Right, and I think last year when we spoke, it was estimated that the carpets were going to be about $15,000. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is it something that we should consider reducing this because we're now taking that cost out and putting it into capital improvements?
So what
Or,
what he's moving into now is not, the entire building's not LED compliant yet, or not
Okay.
LED spec. We just actually replaced all the lighting in here this year. The hallways, I believe this entire end is done, that end still needs to be done. So there's still retrofit kits that need to be done for the lighting itself. The 85,000 is just a number that, God forbid, a furnace goes or something to that extent, an air conditioning unit. They're large ticket items.
That's your contingency.
He has contingencies that within
Okay.
there, yeah.
Okay, so
How about the minor equipment, John?
Minor
I don't think
equip-
that was listed in the detail.
Yeah, he just put in $10,000. I'm not quite sure what it exactly, it could be, so they have a floor scrubber. It does like, you see them like the aisles of Walmart or Home Depot where it'll clean the floor, reapply wax, stuff like that. I know he was saying that the battery wasn't keeping a charge, so it's possible that he's going to be purchasing that.
And that's $10,000?
No, I'm
Oh.
not sure what the cost is, so
okay.
I know that, but that would classify under the minor equipment. I'm not exactly sure. what it is.
Understood, but then would we just arbitrarily just budget out 10?
I'd have to, I can find out for you.
You also have other equipment, you have
Sure.
vacuums and other equipment they use. You have to have the money there in case something goes down. Otherwise, you'd have to be going back and moving line items. You gotta have an X amount of dollars in there for what could go wrong.
Sure.
And again, if we don't spend it, it's going back in the general fund.
Yes.
And that's why our general fund, I seen your final budget was a lot more than we thought it was going to be from last year.
Correct.
Okay.
The public utility service line item seems really high considering what we've been spending historically.
Public utility service, 137.
137,000.
So the aqua rate increases are in that line. So while it didn't happen in previous years, so a lot of what has benefited us is when we did the upgrade with the solar panels. Solar panels are certainly sustaining the other half of the building without raising our PICO costs. But we do have, we will see, as we all saw, Aqua raise their rates. There's a possibility of them raising again next year. So while we don't spend that money fully, we kind of put, you know, if the panels should fail, obviously that generation will stop being provided. We'll try and get repaired, but in the meantime, we'll have the additional cost.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that it for Mr. Hunt, or?
That is it for Mr. Hunt. Thank you.
Okay, is anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hunt, for
Thank
coming
you.
out, and appreciate your job so far.
Thank you so much.
Next would be Chuck McMullen for our Parks and Rec, which can be found on page 19. 19 and 33 will be the two pages that Chuck will discuss.
Good evening, council, president, mayor, residents of Bensalem Township. I'm here for any questions you may have on the budget.
19, what was the other page?
33.
Mr. McMullen, thanks for being here this evening. How many, I guess I'll start. How many total employees are in?
Full-time, 5. Part-time, we have 5 part-time that would be like park rangers.
We also allocate 2 Public Works employees that were included
Yeah,
in
comes out of my budget.
Dennis Hunt's count are funded from Parks and Rec as well.
How about the summer program? You have to have more than 5 employees for the summer rec.
No, we have approximately around 80 to 90 people in the summer program.
So they're part-time employees, you're saying?
Seasonal, this would be for 6 weeks.
Seasonal, yeah.
There was a line item under recreation supplies. Looks like we're under budgeting that based off of what our costs are projected this year. Any particular reason?
What number is that?
Yeah, 42,470.
Chuck, you don't, with recreation supplies, that's the line that we use to pay the ball fields and stuff, right?
No, basically, that would entail all the items that we would use for anything that we would do extra in the park for recreation, like any type of items that we would have to buy, rental, like things that we might have to rent. You know, even though we have a rental, we use that also for that, okay? So the supplies could vary from, like soccer nets, basketball rims, basketball backboards, anything that would entail football, like any of the football field, any of the work, any of the type of material that we would have to buy for recreation for the fields, anything like that, flags, lining paint, things of that nature.
Okay. And then line, can you just explain, provide a little bit more detail for line 46721, which is listed just as programs budgeted out at 130,000.
That would be for our concert series.
Now, I understand there's a sponsorship involved, correct?
Yes.
Where is that in terms of our revenue?
If you see at the top fees programs,
Yep.
36721.
That's the entire line?
It's within that, yes.
It's within that.
Yes.
Do you know how much that is?
So our RFP for banking is actually out right now. The 3-year sponsorship with Penn Community was $60,000 a year. It expires at the end of this year, so we're in negotiations with banks right now to do another 3-year commitment, and part of that is sponsorship of the amphitheater.
Okay, and then, so what's the difference then between the 200 versus the 60?
The revenue versus the expenditures, you mean?
No.
Meaning why we're bringing in 200,000
Yes.
and we're only spending 130?
No, no.
The 140, the other one?
Correct, the 140. Yeah, because you have a line item revenue of 200.
It's $60,000 is the fee.
You're only
for
bringing
the-
60 for the
What's the other
sponsorship.
money?
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't quite understanding. The other part would be our season pass sales.
Okay.
Would also be, we have other sponsors than just the banking, as well as our gate sales for the actual concerts themselves, 50/50.
That's where that's at. Okay, all right.
Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, and we still have the summer recreation program for the kids. It's
Oh, yeah,
basically all summer.
absolutely,
That's
yep.
available to what age?
Yep, 12 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, into the 12 years old. Usually like they're going into freshman year, 13 years old. For a teen program would be the 13-year-olds.
Okay.
Park maintenance and park equipment maintenance are both projected to increase from what we spent or what we budgeted for 2019. Why the increase?
Well, it costs some materials and products that we're purchasing.
Okay.
Such as would be the line items like with the baseball dirt, any kind of materials that we would need would come out of that.
Okay. Groudon Mansion building, there was over 76,000 budgeted for 2019, but it looks like we didn't use any of it.
Yeah, so because of the age of Groudon, when something should be break or need to be replaced over there, it can be expensive. There was, so what you can see the ground mansion expenses, the line right below that one.
Yep.
Our anticipation was to replace the wire, well, not anticipation, what we did was replace the wiring in 2019 within Groudon Mansion. It was the old knob and tube
Knob and tube,
wiring, which is very dangerous. So we've been upgrading that to normal wiring. When we looked into it, we thought we were going to take it out, be able to capitalize those type of things out of the major or the building line. It's just repairs, so we weren't able to capitalize it. So that's why you see the expenses down below. Being at budget, if not, it might be a little bit over because we've just reallocated the fund, the money from the one line to the other line.
Is that still in the process of being done? Or?
Yep. Yeah. Right now,
I don't understand that. I mean, you're actually under budget on your Groudon Mansion expenses line.
the 39,000, well, it's still being worked on. So as of September, so they've
Well, the
stopped.
39,000 is, 39,000 is major
Oh, I'm
equipment.
sorry. I was at the line right above. Yeah, so we are under. And that's because where I was segueing to is we, in the country club, which we'll get to, we just installed a generator over at the country club, a natural gas generator. With that, the electrician that we were using at Groudon, we moved over to the golf course. With the last rainstorms during the summer, we were down for a couple of days due to power being out and everything like that. So that program, it's not imperative that it has to be done today.
There's
So
other things that were more important, so, okay, so
Exactly.
what's the plan for 2020 then?
So for 2020, continue the upgrade for the wiring. That's why you'll see, we did put in the 50,000 again for the expenses. That also pays for the security within the ground itself because we have an alarm system, as well as the utilities, because obviously it has water and gas over there. It's not much because nobody's in it, but we do keep it there. As far as the building itself, some outside work needs to be done to it. Shutters, windows, those type of things are slated to try and get tackled if we can find the historical appropriate
Now,
people to do it.
Are the upper floors done and secure? I know
The
last year there was an
third
issue.
floor- The third floor is not finished.
It's still not
And
finished,
all the
okay.
the plaster's falling in, that's part of this.
That's part of it,
to do
okay.
that This year, that's what I hope is.
Okay. We
Yeah,
just
the
didn't
main-
get
the
to,
main
they
floors
wanted to
are
do the
good shape.
wiring first before they got to that. Got it, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, they've made new holes and,
The main floor is a nice
yes.
addition. And
Yeah,
The
the main
dining
floor
room
looks
even
great,
has original dining room.
However, it is structurally that we've supported it, everything's good.
That's safe now?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then the major equipment, replaced the machine and drag fields over 10 years. So that's slated for $25,000 for 2020. What did we spend the $40,000 on in 2019?
That was replacing a vehicle, truck.
That was replacement
Last year,
truck?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had. Thank
Okay?
All right, so while Chuck is up there, we're going to move to page 23 first, Capital Improvement Fund. There is a line within this fund that you will see down towards the bottom. It's 18,454, 47200, field lighting. And I'll allow Chuck to comment on that with what our plans are for next year.
The sports lighting in our complexes, which would be Valley AA, which would be there, and Yazzie Park, Ramblers, is quite old. It's probably 40 to 50 years old. We have had the poles certified probably about 15 years ago. I had them done for rot. They're wooden poles. We're finding a problem to get fixtures for them, repair them. We just can't. We actually brought some over from one of the electrical contractors brought some over from a job they took apart. I think it was at Neshaminy High School, and put them in the back of Ramblers so we could grab parts off them. So it's getting harder and harder. So this has been something that's been put in the budget over the course of probably, I don't know how many years, like in a 5-year plan, to address these items so that they're not hitting us all at once. So what we're planning is to do 2 fields. One would be at Armstrong Park, which is Valley AA's complex, which would be a baseball field, and one down at Robert Yazzie Memorial Park, which is a baseball field. We'll start there,
One field at each
Each
location?
one, so each organization gets one,
And will you do the whole?
the whole field.
Okay.
Not the whole complex, but the whole field.
Yeah, so
One field.
The numbers are going in your head. One field costs $425,000 to convert to LED.
Yeah.
Are you also replacing the poles then? too,
Yeah,
as well?
poles.
Oh, right, you're making metal poles?
Everything, they're gonna be metal, the
Right.
concrete, then metal, sleeve pipes.
Is that why it costs so much? Is it because you gotta replace the poles?
Yes. Yes.
It's a safety issue also. When you
Oh,
have
no,
wood
of course.
poles and things of that nature, the metal poles with the concrete, it's gonna be safer for the people, so.
Well, the metal highlight, the bulbs in them, what happens is they start to dull, they don't go out a lot of times, and you don't get the candle power that you need on the field for mainly baseball, not so much football, but it's a long time coming for this, and I think that it's something we need to pick at right now. I met with the mayor and Bill and John, and I think it's now, it's the time, because first of all, the poles are old. I guess them poles go back to the 80s, you know what I mean, all the wooden poles, so they're still good, but, it's time to start picking at it.
Now, how many years will it take if we do
Right.
it, like one field? How many fields are at each?
Right, we should expect to see this in the budget for how many years?
Yeah.
Well, not many. Now, what I have left would be a football field down at Robert Yazzie and another baseball field, okay?
So,
And then at Valley, there are some wooden poles that are on their soccer field. They would be included in that too. So what our plan is basically is not to hit us with one big number to replace them all, is to pick at it, as we can. And, if we can see that the money's there and we can find a way to do it, it would be good to pick at it and do it right.
Now, Chuck, not to open up another can of worms, but you're mentioning baseball fields, okay?
Right.
Is there any way we could get a lit softball field for girls to play, or can the baseball field be converted temporarily to a softball field? Like,
Oh,
why
yeah.
can't the girls use the baseball field?
Oh, they can.
Well, I've been hearing that they don't have access to a lit field, is that correct?
Yeah,
We discussed that, and
Yeah.
we-
Sign will turn it off.
Okay.
with we're talking about the older lights. We think there's a liability with those lights, the old wooden poles and everything, what's going on there, to fix these. And I didn't see it this year to be able to do that. We had talked about that, and they do deserve, the girls have a softball field, and we talked about it certainly with the one that's over that we have now, that we dedicated just for that, the girls, the Bombers, I think it is.
Yeah,
Do I
just
have
so we
it
can
right?
work towards it is my point. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not that we didn't bring it up, but we thought it was more prudent to fix the ones that could be a liability.
I understand, but that's something that's in the thought pattern.
Well, also, we really have one lit soccer field. That's all we have. It says Valley AA. There's other needs too. We were going to put a lit field up at firefighters field in the original construction, but that just was over budget. We couldn't do it. There's a lot of things that you want to do that's really there. I mean, we're looking at all that as far as what Joe, what you're saying, and you know, looking at all these different avenues that we have to deal with within our budget restraints.
Okay.
Do you have bids to justify the $400,000? Not that I don't believe you, John.
No, yep, so what we did,
See
what
where we're
Chuck,
at with the process.
yeah, what Chuck did was we reached out to a company by the name of Musco. They are on state contract. They gave us they did a Google image of the field, calculated the foot candle needed for each light that's there, and they provided us with a cost estimate for this year. Did document that the price could change for next year, which we provided a little bit of a buffer within the price for next year.
Is the intention to have this work done then?
2020.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Done, and I believe, did they give you a time frame as far as?
No, there's no time frame set. As
Okay.
soon as,
I wasn't sure
you know,
if
I
that's
didn't make any commitments until council approved it and it was a done deal. No one noted, you know, we didn't tell anyone about it yet, you know. The other thing is all the electric work has been upgraded over the past 15 years at both of them parks, meaning all new underground wire and different things that needed to be done to secure that future new lighting in them parks. So that has been done.
Are these fields, have they been assessed by the township, or they have been requested by the specific organizations from those fields?
Basically from the township, from me. Like, I look at all the lights and stuff like that and all the things that need to be done.
I only ask because if we do a specific field, and the organization says, well, that's really wonderful, but I preferred that you would do this other field because we have more of a need for it.
Right,
I mean,
well,
that's what I'm saying. Are we working in conjunction with the organizations? That's my question.
yes, we will. We will. I've already, you know, been speaking with them over the past few years about it. So we'll make sure that we work with them to get what they need done. I mean, there's 2 fields down at Ramblers that have wooden poles, which are baseball fields. So, you know, we'll discuss their needs for each one. For numbers of teams, do they need to play at night? How much they need the lights? They don't need them here right now as much as they need them there. I will have meetings with them on that.
Okay, is there another page, John, or are we?
Yes, page 33 for the recreation improvement impact fee. How this fund is funded is through developers coming in. They, as part of their impact fees, some are responsible for paying a recreation improvement fee as well, as most of you guys see. That goes into this fund, and Chuck, along with the administration, has the discretion of how and where we utilize that money.
There were, a lot of these projects were slated for, 2019, they didn't get done. The ones that are listed under here for park development,
Like,
garage at a community park needed expansion,
Right.
resurface the rubber surface at Imagination Land,
Right.
playground, all that. So it looks like 160,000 was budgeted in 2019.
Right.
But we only spent about 22,500.
right. Well, what happens, becomes a time restraint with everything to try to get everything done that you want to get done. As far as the rubber surface is concerned, I'm doing a lot of research on that and finding out what's the best way to go. I've had several contractors there. I think we got it down to what we need to do. I wanted some more opinions, because some of the opinions are you top it, some are you rip it all out, redo it. So, I found, we have to rip it all out. You don't want to put new down over a bad base. So we don't jump into things. We try real hard. But by the time we get our budget approved in January, okay, and we go into January 1, and we start getting ready. I mean, we're starting in March to start getting this work done.
Right.
April, too. Get the bids out if they have to be put out to public bid. If it's co-stars or if it's a state contract, then we don't have to. So it all takes a lot of time. And then scheduling time. There's things that you want to do that contractors don't have time, weather restraints. There's a lot of things why we don't do things.
Okay.
We project is what we try to do.
So just,
And what we do is we deal with the things that need to be done for the future, but sometime emergency things come up that we have to do, and it takes our time out of that.
so you're just pretty much bumping the stuff that you didn't get done from 2019 into 2020 and try and get done what you can.
Like the lights, if you would look in my
Yeah.
over 5-year plan, they've been in there over the time, but finding the money, it's not as easy as you think. But
Okay, any other questions on this little area? Okay, thanks, Chuck.
thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
your
We
time.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And it's great working with these guys here, these directors. They're a bunch of great guys. We got a great team here. It's been a pleasure for me, I'll tell you that. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Okay, next, John?
Director
Ken?
of Building and Planning, Ken Farrell. His budget can be found on page 13. As Ken's coming up to the podium, I'll make one comment on his budget. So in the past, we've always had the redevelopment initiatives down at the bottom of the last line, the $200,000. Under the previous director, he was working along with the revitalization with the riverfront, everything like that, and the marketing. With the recent adoption, well, not adoption, but the award of the RACP grant for down on the riverfront, the new, that you'll see in capital improvement fund that we got approved for this year. It's a $3.5 million grant. It's a state-funded RACP redevelopment grant with a 50% match on our part. So we're not going to use we're taking that money out of the general, not using that money in general fund any longer. We're going to use this revitalization. This is for a spine road to try and take some of the traffic off the state road. With that, Ken, your show.
Good evening, Mr. President, council members, Mayor. I just want to thank you. We have presented the budget for the Building and Planning Department, and certainly if there's any questions, comments, concerns.
I think I had asked John this earlier, but John, the same thing, and Mr. Technesian had gotten this point on another department. But your actual for September 30th is 417,556, and then you say projected for the end of the year goes to the 751 that you had budgeted. So is that under the same pretense that you like that's a quarter, 3/4 of it? It's a lot of money towards the end.
Right now, Ken's down 3 employees within the department. We're down 2 inspectors and a clerical individual. We are in the process of trying to hire an individual or individuals for those positions. So Obviously, when this was done September 30, not knowing, obviously, we wouldn't have spent the $300,000, but it was just, I wasn't sure where it was going to come in at.
And you didn't know whether they were going to be hired at what point?
Yeah, we're actively trying to hire the individuals now.
Okay, and then the budget for this year is 784,700, which is a little bit more than the budgeted from 2019, and that's the additional employees, I guess?
Yeah, and contractual increases
Okay.
for the union employees.
The overtime line item is it's over 10 times larger than what we've done in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
1,500 to 18,000.
two things happen and Ken, if I'm overstepping, please certainly cut me off. Two things happen in building and planning this year. One, we got a new computer software system. With the implementation of the new computer software system, there was a lag on getting permits entered into the system, as well as a learning curve with it in the beginning of the year. That certainly produced more overtime than what we had. The other part was we had one individual be on a leave of absence for an extended period of time, leaving an already short department even shorter, which in turn needed the remaining individuals to work some overtime to try and keep things moving appropriately within that department. All of those obviously because I stated we have 3 individuals that are not hired, we had the budget money within salaries that we just would reallocate to the overtime line to offset that charge, as well as we had money in, and I'm sorry, my projection number is bad. I'm just seeing that what you're saying now.
Yeah, the projection is
Yep,
weird.
the projection is weird. I pulled the wrong cell. I should have pulled the 14,157, because the overtime has stopped within the department. So
Okay.
that happened earlier in the year. But I see what you're saying now. My projection was only at 1,500, so that was my mistake. But they're not over budget.
That's not part of our budget tonight, but you just missed, that's a
Yep,
mistake.
I grabbed the wrong cell when I was doing my projection.
And how about the workers' compensation insurance? Why is that so low?
So workers' comp is insured through Delaware Valley Insurance Trust. It's just, the inspector, the office clerk are the lowest. It's all based on wages for one, and for two, the office individuals are the lowest rated workers' comp expense, and the inspectors are the next step above. So they have very low cost to them and associated to the rates that Delaware Valley charges for those individuals.
But it's a $5,000 difference right across the board.
Why'd you budget that last year for 1,600, not 1,900?
That's what came in, the rates just went down for those two particular categories, so it went down. I'm happy to say it went down.
Okay. The professional services, item 43100, what professional services are we talking about here? Ken?
Yeah, professional services, that would be code inspections, Carroll Engineering for the GIS, and our electric inspector for the permitting.
So these are subcontractors, is that correct?
That is correct.
So code handles
Code handles all of our residential.
residential, right?
We currently have a commercial building inspector through code. We currently have an electrical inspector as a consultant that does the plan reviews and the inspections, and then Carroll Engineering as we need them for the GIS.
Is this going to be changed when you have more employees or new employees, or is this the?
One of the three positions was a commercial building inspector, that if we can fill that item will come off of the professional services. At least now, we're still using code for all of the residential work. I haven't really looked at trying to bring that in-house. I'd like to get all these other pieces of the puzzle together before we start looking at that. So assuming we bring the commercial building inspector back in-house, we would still have code just for residential permitting, inspection, plan review.
And that's the name of a company, Code, is that correct?
Code Inspection Services, yes.
They're out of Warminster, is that the company?
Horsham.
Horsham, that's right.
Bob Heil's firm.
And what you have a court reporter. It's not much, but
The stenographer for the zoning hearing board.
So that's for the
and-
zoning hearing board, okay.
And planning
All right.
commission.
I wasn't sure. And of course, you already went through the major equipment at $21,000, is that right? Is that, what major equipment do you need?
The major.
Computers?
The major equipment, that is to replace one of the code inspection officers' cars. That's in a rotation program, and they called me up and said, we need to replace this one, and that's what the $21,000 is.
You had mentioned something about bringing in-house residential, and if I remember correctly, I think we had residential in-house at some point. We decided to then subcontract that out. I wasn't on the board at that time to understand the reasoning behind it. So then why would we then reverse path on bringing someone in?
Well, I didn't say we were, I just said once we get our house in order, that's something that I can certainly look at.
Okay.
If it's not cost effective to bring somebody in, I'm certainly not going to do that. Certainly with the residential, we do have ebbs and flows, and you don't want somebody sitting around not doing anything. So sometimes with the code and the prices they charge, which are reasonable, it is more efficient to outsource that. So, I mean, that's something that I will look at in the future, but the immediate need is to fill these positions and get the commercial building inspector and everybody in our house settled.
That's fine. I'm not forming an opinion either way at this point, but I guess because it seems like you get better service when you do have someone that's actually in-house versus having to sub that out and send it up. The ETA for the additional hires or the spots that you're filling?
Well, we're actively doing it now. We're hopefully that the code enforcement officer and the clerk will be filled soon. But obviously, one of the things I'm running into is a residency requirement. For example, the commercial building inspector, he needs 15 certs to be a commercial building inspector, and that's a very tough position to find somebody that lives in Bensalem and has the certs and wants to come work for the township. But we're trying. But I will say that if whether we find that person or don't find that person, we're not suffering because we are getting exceptional service from code with their commercial building inspector. He lives in Bensalem, and he's there, and he's on a moment's notice. I can call him up, and he can answer questions. Or back in the beginning of the year when I was first hired, we had that rash of, we had like 4 or 5 cars that went through buildings, and he was an asset because I could call him up and say, hey, can you go look at that? And one was on a Sunday night, and he went and looked at it, not a problem. So nothing is suffering by having that outsourced, but it is a position that we actively want to fill.
Since we have people that are subcontracting to, and we are short-handed for actual employees, how is the service that we're giving in building and planning to our residents and to those who need inspections done and things like that?
Well, I don't think anybody's suffering because with code, the two issues, the commercial building inspector is physically in my office. So I can walk over, I can dictate his schedule, I can walk over for questions. Phyllis, who does the scheduling, can schedule him where we need him to be. So that's not suffering at all. The residential component of it, a lot of times they'll do the permits themselves, so they don't need any space in the office. They'll do the permits, they'll do the inspections, and they're very timely with what they do. And they have multiple people that can handle it, although one gentleman, Joe, who mainly does the reviews for us, if he is tied up, they have other people that will do it. So they hop right on it, and they can get stuff done for us. So we're not suffering, again, we're not suffering by outsourcing that either.
Is there a backlog of permit request applications?
Right now, we're running about 20, 25 in the permit center. We're running about 18, I believe, in invoicing up at Margie's desk. So we're caught up from where we want to be. So right now, the permit review is about 2 weeks or so, and then depending on when it falls on the pile to be invoiced, it could be another half a week or a week to get that out the door. We're allowed up to 30 days, and we strive to get that done in much sooner time I'd like to get it done in 2 weeks. Sometimes that's feasible, sometimes that's not. But you have, keeping in mind, I got a stat here. With our permits, so far in 2019, we have 3,001 permits. So, that's approximately 273 per month, or it's about 9 to 10 per day that permit comes, whether it's residential or not. So, and it has to go through it goes through the permit center, then it goes to one of the clerk to assign the number, then it gets assigned to whoever's going to review it. So, and our permits are up from last year, because last year we were only at 1,223. So we're about 1,700 permits more this year than we were last year. And that's why it's important that we find the additional staff, and we're actively looking for them. But and I can't say that there's one reason that we have more permits this year than last year, other than ebbs and flows. It just some years will be more. This year, we have a little bit more commercial space moving into the township. The Interplex has been very busy with people moving out, people moving in, et cetera. So, and that's a good thing for the township.
Yep, absolutely.
It's a very good thing for the township.
You also have renovations, people remodeling their homes because they're older homes, people putting pools in.
Yep.
You have all kinds of things going on like that, and that's going to continue because people have more money to spend. They're doing more things in their houses. They're putting the pools in they've wanted. So the permits are going to go up from that standpoint too. But being less than 30 days is fantastic compared to where we were when you first came.
Oh, absolutely. And as John said, there was a slight learning curve with the Muni Logic, and I probably would have done the training a little bit differently than the person before me who had it set up. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're over that hump. We're over that learning curve, and Muni Logic is still doing good for us. We're still tweaking it. We're still trying to fit categories and stuff and working with them. So eventually we'll get this 100%.
Now, Ken, is any of the new employees going to help you with complaint situations and having someone go out and address complaints that the residents have in the neighborhoods? Because we get that a lot. I think Chrissy covers 90% of them, I would think.
Yes.
Seems like she's running a lot, but is somebody going to be assisting that so we can get out? Because like when there's a situation, it has to be addressed, whether we can do something about it or not. We at least want to respond to the complaint.
Yeah, one of those positions is code enforcement officer,
Okay.
and which will handle that. And similar with the permits, this year to date our complaints are 1,219, where last year total was 1,030. So we're approximately 189 more complaints this year, and the year's not even over.
Yeah, okay, so we need to handle it, okay.
Just one question on the line items. It looks like you were budgeting $200,000 for legal services. Seems high compared to what our actual is.
It was the same.
Yeah. What we did was we took the budgeted number from last year. When I had gotten here, gentleman Noah, which is now passed on to Aaron, we would have a monthly code meeting, and we had about 3 sheets of different things where it was either in the court system or at the DJ's office and all. And we've been working real hard to get those closed out, so now we're down to about a page and a half. So I agree that I don't believe that we will utilize all of that expenditure. We try to budget what was there for last year. Again, that's always a moving target, because I could get hit with 5 complaints. That's going to take the legal work and blow that budget item out of the water. So it's always tough to decide where do you want that number to be, and that's why we chose to budget it at what it was last year.
And it was lower in recent years, like you said, Ed, but also the actual in 2018 was 218, so it was above 200 a couple years ago.
Right.
Professional.
For your computer tech support, it looks like you're making the transfer from Alchemy to Munilogic. Is that line item going to go down in future years as that transfer is complete?
Yes, we have our last really big, what I would consider big for next year. There's a $30,500, which we call a transfer of data from the Alchemy, that is the old database system we have. And what they're going to do is they're going to transfer all of that into MuniLogic so that now, once that is completed, all of our data will be in MuniLogic. So that item will go away.
Okay.
We have a $4,000 training item, which again, I hope that that item will go away after this year, because again, there's still some stuff we're tweaking, still some stuff that we're trying to get some better cross-training throughout the clerks in the department, so that if somebody is out again, somebody can step right up. And sometimes we can teach them, but sometimes it's just better to have somebody come in from the company to say, hey, this is what we're going to do, sit one-on-one, because again, if we have one of the girls try to train them, then I'm out 2 people, whereas I can only be out 1 person if they would come in.
And you used the word MuniLogic?
That is the name of the software that we use that
That's the
tracks all of our
software,
permit,
okay.
our complaints, our everything.
That's the new software that was instituted.
That was a new software that it was about a 2-year vetting process, and then they decided on that, and we started up and running in, I believe, February of this year with it, so.
Now,
Okay.
under minor equipment, you've got tablets for inspectors. Does that tie into the new software?
Yeah.
They
what
can
we're-
update stuff from the field?
Yeah, what we're trying to do, 2 things actually. The tablets, when you have MuniLogic and you're in a screen, let's say the person at the window, you have a screen, you can't get out of that to look at something else. You have to totally get out, you have to totally get back in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have 2 tablets up front. That way, if you were to come to the window and say, I wanna check on this permit, the tablet is there, they can look all the information up right there, they don't have to go back to their desk. But then also, all the code enforcement inspectors, they're gonna have the tablets. So in the field, if they need to do a complaint, they can do a complaint there. Or more importantly, is if they're driving down and they might be going to Mr. Pizzo's house for a complaint and they see something else, they can look it up and they can say, hey, they don't have permits for what they're doing, and we're able to check it real time right there.
Okay, good. So how many tablets is that purchase?
That would be 4,
like
5, 6, 7.
7, okay. I like that program.
Okay, do you have any other pages he's responsible for, John? Is that it?
No, there's no other pages for, but also within that cost for the tablets is the monthly fee for the wireless. Sorry, I was just making sure before I answered that we didn't
So
have it
will
in the
that be a
communication.
recurring cost then that we'll see in the future?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Will that be a recurring cost that we'll see in the future?
Yeah, we'll move the monthly fee to the communication
line.
line.
Got it.
Yeah, once that happens.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions? All right, Ken, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, John, we have our director of,
Yep,
Country
so
Club.
lastly, we have Jim Bogan for the Country Club. His budget revenue is found on page 20, and the expenses on page 21. And if you don't mind me, I'll preempt you real quick.
yeah, we had a point here you wanted to make, right?
Yeah, so with the Country Club, we have a interfund transfer that you'll see for $350,000 coming in as revenue for this year. What we've always done with the club and under Jim's recommendations is we've always piecemealed and done a path or 2 within the current year. 1, to save costs, 2, because we didn't have the money to do the entire cart paths that needed to be repaved. Our lease expired this year on our cart leases, on our golf carts, sorry, and we really need to go out for new golf carts. So that is in the golf cart lease is in our capital outlay for next year. However, we want to finalize the paving of the golf course next year before we purchase brand-new golf carts and destroy them in a year or 2.
Cart paths.
Cart paths, yes. Before we destroy the golf carts on the bumpy cart paths now. The plan going forward will be, if the club can sustain it, there will be a repayment. So it's basically we're loaning the money to the club, and then we'll try and set up an annual repayment of the $350 in the coming years if the club can sustain the transfer back. So that's the only part that I wanted to preempt for you guys. With that, Jim's open for questions.
Well, I have a
Unless you
question
have-
specific to that. I mean, I see the transfer in under
Yep.
revenue. I don't
Coming
see
from-
an expenditure.
Capital improvement.
So the expenditure's in capital.
Yeah, and
But isn't that just the transfer?
it's an interfund transfer, yes.
Right, so where's the expenditure for the actual cart path pavement?
Oh, it'll be in the capital outlay line.
Oh, it's part of that, okay.
It's part of that
Got it.
400,000 at the end. And the only reason why, normally what we would have done is just taken out of the capital improvement fund, but because of the nature of the golf course being an enterprise fund, we have to keep assets of the course within the course, and you can't use the township funds to commingle. So
Right.
that's why we're doing it this way.
Okay.
And if they can't repay?
It'll just remain a liability on the books until they can repay.
And the path, Jim, are they about halfway done?
I don't really want to, no.
Are they about halfway done the path?
About a quarter, I would say, Joe.
Quarter, okay.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, come on.
If I gave a presentation as long as Fred, it would be morning.
Yeah.
But any questions? My name's Jim Bogan, Director of Golf. Just to add a note, since 2014, we've been voted best in golf throughout Bucks County. That's a pretty good run.
How are we doing on green fees and the range fees so far this year? We talked last year, and
Yeah.
I was skeptical of,
Yeah.
the numbers.
You can see our numbers are bouncing up. We
Yeah.
had a good year. We're weather-driven. Golf's weather-driven, and we're going to meet our budget.
Okay.
Actually above it. In
Okay.
golf, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
I believe we have debt service on this.
The debt service for the course is in sinking fund. So there's no.
What's the balance on that?
Keep asking your questions, I'll come back to you. It's just I need to look it up real quick.
And the number of years left on it, too, would be.
7,000.
Now, John, what were you explaining to me? Oh, I'm sorry, you're looking at it. The expenditures on the golf course before someone asked a question. So I called you today about something, and you were saying that we have the heating system was done, the tiles in the banquet hall on the roof tiles, and the doors, and you had to reallocate that somehow, or you were explaining?
Nope, I'm good now. Yeah, so in next year's, but you're talking for the 2020 budget,
Yeah,
correct?
you're talking
Yeah, so
2020.
for the 2020 budget, we have some repairs that we need to do within the course. One is the mansion. It's a great focal point for our weddings, that the brides love the mansion. They love getting married outside the mansion. It's in need to be repainted. We're estimating ballparking around $15,000 to repaint that alone. We've patched, but it's, it just needs a complete facelift at this point. The outside door leading from the banquet facility to the outside patio, the locking mechanism just isn't catching anymore, so that needs to be repaired as well as looking to upgrade some of the lighting within the banquet area as well as the ceiling tiles. They're over 12 years old, so getting kind of.
Okay, so there's
worn.
some of the expenditures on that.
Yep.
And the banquet facility's been doing good, so. Okay, is there any questions for Jim specifically about the golf course?
Well, the professional fees, is that accounting services and legal services and things, or is it professionals?
John, do you want to answer that?
The accounting fees is just part of the annual financial reports that the township does. The country club obviously is part of the financial statements. That's just their allocation for their particular section of the, what the auditors feel their cost is to do the.
$145,000?
He was asking about the
Oh, the professional service. I apologize. I thought you were talking about auditing. Professional service is for our, obviously, the banquet manager and the catering facility is not an employee of the township. We hire an outside agency, Matt Galvin with Morningstar. He's here currently, should we have any questions with banquet. That's the fee for the banquet manager, Tony, because she is not an employee of the township, as well as Matt's fee for assisting in running the banquet facility.
Okay.
I
And John,
apologize.
Jim, I'm sorry. Jim, your youth golf program, that's your own program? That's not within our recreation
We
department?
run a First Tee program,
Yeah.
which is funded by the Bader Foundation.
Oh, okay,
And,
the Bader Foundation pays that, okay.
The township graciously hosts an area, not the golf course, but an area that they use. We run a program with Chuck, that's a one-week program. And we also run multiple programs through our staffing.
For the youth, right?
For the youth.
Yeah, I see them out there.
Specifically.
And then also, Johnny C., one of your pros, he runs the Veterans Program,
Yes, he
which is
does.
one of
An
the
excellent
top
job.
veteran programs in the country, right? Is that?
Yes, it is. It's one of
And
the...
how big's that now?
Oh, it's grown to over 50 vets that are entertained at our place.
Did you answer the balance due yet?
Yeah, the balance for, the balance for 2020 is at $5.9 million, and it matures on 2029.
So it'll be paid in 2029?
Yes, that's the last payment, yes.
Okay.
Can you explain the line item for machinery and equipment repair under 43,740? Actual 218 was 21,600 and budgeted at 40.
What line's this, I'm sorry?
Count number 43,
Operating
43740.
expenses.
And what is your question?
The machinery and equipment repair, is that all just simply repair, or you're looking to purchase new equipment?
No, that's repairs to all our equipment, including carts, maintenance equipment, and multiple vehicles that we use throughout the course of the year.
And did you list, I know you heard you say it earlier, but did we list, we have to rent the carts? How is that?
We
listed?
go lease to purchase.
Was that,
We go lease
Lease
to
purchase.
purchase, yes.
is that listed in here,
Dollar
Jim?
buyout, yeah,
It's within the capital outlay line.
yeah.
So the capital outlay line is consisting of 350 for the cart repaving, the cart lease. There are 2 equipment leases for lawnmowers and some other equipment that we've purchased. That is due to mature in 2021, those 2 leases, and again, they're leased to purchase as well. And then the banquet upgrades that I was.
And with the old carts, you sell them, reuse them?
Trade in normally, Mr. Kitzelback,
So
yes.
is it traded to the same company that you're lease
Uh,
purchasing
It
from?
normally is cost-effective to do it that way, and they do give us a very good number. If we tried to sell them out individually, it would become pretty complicated, where we get a pretty good amount of reimbursement on the old carts. We've kept them in good shape, but they have shown their wear now. They're going on 6 years, over 6 years. Normal cart usage lasts 4 to 5, and we're in our 6th year going in.
I know we're looking to do, or I believe the work's been started, the storm water management. Where are we at that as far as expense, and is that included in here, or are we, what?
That's on hole 12.
Yeah, we have engaged tri-state engineers to do the study. We met with them, the mayor and myself, about a week ago. They have, their preliminary estimate for drainage work on the course was to be around $230,000. That work would involve putting some type of a basin on Fairway 12.
Yeah, out by the
Right.
no-cut area across.
Right, in the, what they call, I guess, the trash area.
The high weeds area.
Yeah, where you are.
I've been there.
Mr. Nurse.
One of the things they did say was that putting that basin on there would only capture about 10% of the runoff because of the topography of the golf course, the way it flows. It might not be the most efficient way to go. They had suggested us running a storm line along Humeville Road. There's a basin right at the intersection of Woodbine and Humeville, which crosses Humeville and goes down Woodbine. Their idea was to put another couple basins on Humeville Road, run it south on Humeville Road and...
Not basin, drains.
Drains, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Storm drain line along Humeville, southbound, and tap into the Village Green storm drain line that exists there.
So do we have an idea of
Which
what that would?
eventually go to the creek.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, do we have an
I
idea
believe
of what that
the-
expense would be if we decided, that if we opted out of the basin, which
Doesn't seem-
we're at 230,
Well, the basin, the work that they've estimated for the basin and the storm drain line was about 230.
oh, so that includes the entire project?
So, and I believe the basin work was, I want to say somewhere around $80,000 to do that.
Okay.
I believe that all started when Village Green was built, by the way. Yeah, that water used to flow right down Humeville
Is
Road.
that part of capital outlay?
Yeah, we put in capital outlay, stormwater restoration. We've put $1.7 million in there for next year. Part of that, because we had no idea when we prepared the budget, it was before we had any of these numbers from Tri-State, so we really didn't know what to put in there, so we threw like $500,000 in there. But we're obviously doing multiple stormwater projects, and when we get to capital, we're doing multiple plans for stormwater repairs for next year for different sections that would be included within that.
Okay, while we're on the subject of,
And one of them, excuse me.
Good.
One of them is Woodbine, down the problem we had through those homes and everything.
That's the line on Hugo, that would help alleviate the flooding.
That would
Yes.
help the-
Coming over the Unionville Road, right.
It would help on Woodbine where now, where it floods right there, to get it out and get it going down there. That's part of that drainage.
Got it. It's just so I understand, because what we're looking at is 450, so then whatever that,
That's included, you're saying, in capital improvements under separate line item?
Yeah, it's included in capital
Okay.
improvement fund itself, under the
all
storm.
of that is included
All
in the
of that,
capital
yeah,
improvement?
because
Okay.
even, it's not technically considered a golf course asset, so therefore we can take it out of capital improvement fund.
all right, and then from that point, we had done some improvements on State Road. What's the continuation? What's the program for the, working on that?
Yeah, I'll handle it. I think I'll handle it. As you all know, State Road, we had $2 million in there for improvements last year of what was going on. We actually, I think some of the council was down there. We met on State Road with the state and all that came about that. After that, we met again with PennDOT, and I have in front of me here a report that they included us in the study. If you remember, we weren't in it. It was Croydon, the Pequot, or the Neshaminy up to 413. And they've now included us, and I have that study to go the rest of the way. So PennDOT has given us, this is a preliminary study
Why is the question?
that we had asked for.
Okay, I'm listening.
And so what we spent last year, I think, was $238,250?
Yes.
$250,000 for the immediate emergency at the country club. That has been completed. So we saw no need in us continuing to fund anything there because of PennDOT taking over, and hopefully they come up with a study that says how we fix it. And at the time, if we see we have to chip in or something, we'll come back to that, but it's not in the 2020 budget.
So then what type of time structure is PennDOT offering to us?
At the time,
Yeah,
I think it goes all the way out to 2024, the whole thing for actual construction and that kind of stuff. I think I forget it. There's so much stuff here, guys, if you want to continue, I'll see if I can find out what the,
All right, it gives us an idea, somewhere into 2024, including
yeah, here it is
engineering
right
and
at the end. The
completion.
State Road project is preliminary engineering with a potential start in 2024.
Okay.
To re-engineer all state roads.
So are we accepting the fact that it's a state road and that PennDOT is going to primarily fund that project?
That's what they're saying.
I mean, because I know the discussion, the argument last year was the fact that we included a $2 million line item for something that technically.
Because we couldn't get any response from PennDOT on doing anything down there.
And it was an emergency situation when
And
the road was getting
if
flooded
we didn't
out.
spend
Can't
money.
wait till 2024.
There's no money been spent, other than the 250,000.
And I thought the estimates that came back were under like 150.
Well, so the 256 is including engineering, because obviously there's engineering costs too.
And you had sent those, I think that the total was like around 156, 157.
I don't know that we had gotten the final numbers in. I can give you the,
Okay.
we
Yeah.
paid it at this point, so we could certainly.
Okay.
I did send something out with the final numbers, didn't I?
Yeah, I think I saw it because I was saying 200 and someone said it's going to be a little bit more and it ended up being 250.
I'll revisit
We
that.
can
and I'll
get-
get back
thank
to
you.
That's not in
Appreciate
this
that.
budget, but let's.
No, it's just the
Obviously,
actuals that are
if the
written
two,
down here.
if the 256 is not if the 256, sorry, Jim, if the 256 is not the final number, when the audit comes through, the actuals.
We're trying to give you an opportunity to give Fred a run for his time,
Yeah,
Jimmy.
Any other questions in reference to the golf course?
None.
Okay. All right, Jim.
Jim, I just wanted to say, this year, I've had so many people come to me and say that they're members of private courses that are
Yes.
coming to golf at our course
Yes.
because of the shape in our course. The job that you guys do, and all our department heads are doing,
Yeah.
puts us in a really good place. So I want to compliment each and every one of you for the things that you do.
Yeah, I'd like to give a special kudos to Jim Starring and his crew.
Tremendous,
Roger
yeah.
Smith, his assistant, they do an excellent job. They really do. They held that golf course together in a real bad year.
And Jim, you have the Bensalem Golf Association, which I belong to. I can't participate as much as I would, but they have a 9-hole Friday night golf, and it really includes a lot of local residents, and it
Yes.
really incorporates all the residents
Yes.
into it. Between that and the veterans and the children's program and the driving range, it really gives an opportunity for people to get out there and use it.
Yes,
right?
and remember, open space.
Yeah, and it's open space, that's right.
Mr.
Okay.
President, can I just bring up
Yeah.
something? The Bader Foundation of what they're doing around the community, they
Yeah.
should be commended
Thank
on
you.
that, because that was part of the deal when the township
Yes.
purchased that for them to, I don't know, Jim, how much you give away yearly, but it's a lot in all different aspects of this community, so.
Do you know where some of that money went, Jim, besides the
Oh, boy,
youth?
a lot of the associations we've given to all the associations around here. Actually, we're looking for any type of a club or whatever that is a 501c3. To
And it
come,
helps kids.
Come see us, yes.
It's all about helping the kids.
Well, it
Yeah,
also
it's
helps the
mainly
senior
about the
center. I
kids.
know they're very happy with
Yeah,
you being there.
Senior Center,
Absolutely.
the historical.
Help them out.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
good. All right, thank you.
very much.
All right, Jim, thank you. Now, John, you're on the agenda here. Do you have something else to say in reference to the finance
So
department?
I'm going to handle whatever other questions you guys have within the budget. I guess, why don't we just start on page 23? It's the capital improvement fund. I know we've touched on it throughout the various departments, but just finalize that. So for 2020, in 2019, we budgeted $1 million for the I-95 slip ramp. In talking with the commissioners up at county, that is still a project on their radar. So we're going to rebudget that for next year because they're anticipating on being able to do something like with that in 2020. The Rack-P River Renaissance, that's that spine road that I was telling you about, the $3.5 million with a grant for 1.75. that we would get. We are the sub-recipient to a county grant for that.
Now, that increased, it was 2.5
Yep.
last year.
Yeah,
Why
the county
increase?
was able to get another grant.
Oh, so it just reflects the increase in grant money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And what is that for exactly? I had that written down.
It'll be a spine road that will run parallel.
Okay, I know what it is.
With
Okay.
State Road, yep.
Okay.
See more or less trucks.
Are we going to do that next year?
It's all in preliminary phase, so the state is still reviewing the budget that was submitted for it, and then at that point, from there, we'll start talking to the businesses down there for the land and everything like that. So, do I think it will be completed next year? No, I do not. Could it be in the process that it will be started? Yes, it will be.
And how confident are we on the I-95 slip ramp?
Mayor? The I-95
The I-95
slip ramp.
slip ramp with the county, I think the county has to vote to contribute.
Let me say, as confident could be, administration has changed up there, and they kind of told us that they're going to continue on that, they're committed to that. Commissioner Marsali has been with Rob before Lockery, working real hard on that. She has a real commitment to do this, and I understand keeping that commitment, and certainly with the three commissioners, I know Gene would certainly be in favor of that, so we feel real good about it. We were going to take it out of the budget, and we were assured that, no, don't do that, because we think it's going to happen.
Okay.
That's the best I can give you.
That's an answer, thank you. Yeah. Thank
And
you.
that's going to cap Bensalem's contribution to that project?
Yeah, the $1 million
No
is
more
what
than
our...
$1 million, the rest is funded from the county and PennDOT, correct?
Correct, yes. The adaptive signals, one on Bristol Pike, one on Huville Road, they are both slated to actually be constructed and completed next year. The final approvals came in from PennDOT and everything, so they're getting ready to go out to bid and everything like that for those two signals. The DEP stormwater management, we completed the mapping of the stormwater for this year. We completed the mapping project. What's going to happen now will be measuring outflows of settlement and determining where the outflows are and everything like that, so above my pay grade for that particular situation. The stormwater restoration, we talked about that. We have...
Real quick, that stormwater management mapping.
Yep.
We're going to use the results of that with this new jet truck to clean out the stormwater system? Is that the intent?
Yeah, that as well as with incoming building will, any development will also be making sure that they're not dumping into stormwater as opposed to creating their own stormwater management on the properties. The stormwater restoration, I know we talked about that. There's various locations that we'll be going out to bid on. I don't really have a listing. Quentin's been working with Public Works and the administration on determining what needs to be done for next year, but obviously, like we spoke, the Country Club as well as Woodbine were definitely listed within those, so.
And that's only $230,000, that's gonna cover that whole area?
I don't know, no, there's additional costs for the Woodbine. The 230 was just the Country Club.
Oh, that's what I guess there was confusion before, because it sounded like you said the 230 covers everything.
No, I believe the 230 was just for the basin and the,
An additional drains along Unionville Road.
Right.
yeah. Anything going down Woodbine.
Oh, down Woodbine would be
Down
additional,
Woodbine is
got it.
completely
But the
separate
stretch along Huville Road is included in that 230?
Correct.
Okay.
I want to touch something on that. If we go down Unionville Road, you have to understand that it's PennDOT, and that's what we're working on now. They do the engineering, then we have to get the okay from PennDOT. That's a big
And it
job,
might take
bringing that
time
pipe down.
and-
But we think that is the best, engineers are telling us, one of the best ways to get the water coming down into these pipes and get it away from everything. So we think that's and it'll be a pretty big pipe, but we think that's the way to go. But I just want you to know that PennDOT has to okay that.
Can I, Mayor, can I add something though to that? And just to reiterate a point about the fact that that number that was given to us was substantiated by some of the legwork that you've already started doing for costs? Okay.
It's not solid.
I understand that, but at least that we have some ballpark.
Hopefully I come back and say it's cheaper.
Well, certainly, sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
So what makes up the rest of that 1.75 million?
right. Yeah.
Well, there are a number of other projects throughout the township. One is up in Clark Avenue in Trevos. That's slated to be done. As a matter of fact, I think we just got some bids in on that. And I think that's actually as part of, will be awarded sometime, hopefully in the next month or so.
Do you know about how much those bids are coming in at? Can we?
150. Yeah, I think it was around 150 for that project.
Okay.
And then, and again, there's a bunch of little projects that they're working on. Sarmiento, there's a storm drain project. There's a project on Ford Road. Many of them are small, and our engineers in-house are doing the engineering work. They haven't really given us any good estimates at this point on it, but you just never know where those things take you, so.
Can you please send us a full list of those projects?
Certainly.
Only because we get complaints from residents. If we know that there's a project in the works for the year, we'll be able to kind of give that information.
Can do that.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Ford Road, was that also stormwater management?
Yes.
I mean, because, we're still at, rounded off at $600,000-$700,000.
And again, part of it was we had no idea where the country club was going to come in, so we went high with, we basically, the engineer said about 750 was going to be what we needed for
The whole.
the whole projects for various parts without the township. We added $1 million in there because building a basin is, depending on how deep and everything else, is expensive, as well as we didn't know what other type of drainage was going to be needed in there. So that's basically what the additional money is in there
So
for.
we're kind of over budgeting that
We
line
are
item.
over budgeting because we truly didn't have any numbers to go on.
Okay.
The 40,000 in Public Works, as you've seen in previous budgets, we've always had repairs. We're finally going to replace the heating and air conditioning unit down there. We've gotten quotes, 40,000 is the approximate cost.
How old is that system?
It's original, so
Yeah,
25 plus years old.
Okay.
The heating air down Public Works. Road repaving for $1 million. We have, Quentin has identified some spots that we don't need to do full repaving, but there's some spots that we do need to do some additional repaving on some spots. And as well as, we all know Aqua and Pico are doing work throughout the township, so obviously we'll look at those areas too to see if we
I
can.
think there's a project at the bottom of Power Avenue in Newportville that's been a problem.
And I know they're working in Barnsley right now, so, those type of things we're going to be looking at as well.
And is that another area where we're kind of over budgeting?
Yeah.
Because we don't know the full extent.
We
of
don't
what's
know,
needed?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What are they doing in Barnsley now with the entrance?
Is that Aqua down in Barnsley as well? Yeah. Aqua's moving.
Tents and stuff there. Is Aqua?
Some of these places you're over budgeting, it needs to be done because we get emergencies during the year. And if we don't have money there to get these things done, we can't take care of these emergencies.
Correct.
So I don't have a problem with having that extra money there personally myself.
Correct, thank you. Field lighting, we spoke to on that. The cart repaving, there is the expense for the transfer to the country club. The field lighting we spoke to, and the Central Park Trail, that's out to bid right now, or it's.
Right. The Central Park Trail is going to connect the walkway behind the amphitheater and the bridge that's out there, and run that out to, along between, behind the tax collector's building and the library, out in Imagination Land, out to Humenville Road, connect up with that sidewalk. So again, that'll be an interconnect with some of the other trail work throughout, so.
And there's grant funds for that as well, so that'll, it's only 79,000, but there'll be grant money coming back in for that as well.
Again, slated for next year.
Yeah, that's gone out to bid, so we're looking to construct next year, yes.
The Bensalem Township.
Yeah,
Like that was
so
zeroed out?
what we did was, Waterside is putting in their section of the trail.
They're extending even past that, right?
They have an agreement with the yacht club on the one side, that they're going to connect the trail to the yacht club's driveway. We're in current talks with the gentleman that came up the other day with his section going to Kamer Drive. So Waterside has agreed to construct it all, to maintain it all, make it, their pathway. From that point forward, we will, if we want to continue it down the road, that will be our starting point in working our way in each direction, but it'll involve acquiring easements from owners and everything like that.
So for now, we're gonna let Waterside fund their portion of it. Once that gets finished, then we'll look into picking it up from there.
Yep.
How are we coming along with the talks with the one property owner that came forward the other
Yeah,
night?
that's what I was going to ask. There was a gentleman that came before us,
He
council.
said they
Yeah.
negotiated with him, right? Did you
Yeah,
negotiate with that guy?
we had a conversation today that we're circling back with them, with that gentleman today, or in the coming days, so
Okay.
it's in the works. With that, is there any other questions for any of the other?
Any other questions for John?
Yeah, I have some. Mr. Chakowski, we had the audited financials for 217 online. I know you had noted at the beginning of the meeting that 218 has been finalized.
Yes, and I believe they should be online as well.
I didn't see them. I pulled this the other day, but.
Okay, I can confirm that.
Do you have the ending balance as of 218?
The ending general fund balance?
Yep.
Yeah, so the ending balance is 27,802.
General fund, what about all funds?
Well, they're each individually within the budget, so each fund has its beginning and ending balance, so you'd have to, if you look at each fund, there's a beginning and ending balance for 2018.
Okay, but you did that differently on this budget.
Yeah, so what I did was I wanted to, and I guess I'll speak to that as well, the recap all funds, we decided to present this a little bit differently, just so everyone can get a better understanding of how the budget expenditures, the budget revenue, as well as our transfers are presented. When you do a recap all page and it's all the revenues and all the expenditures, it doesn't really recap anything, in my opinion. I think it's better to see where each fund ended the year, where we're looking at presenting a budget for each year, as well as where our expenditures are with operating incomes and everything, with that particular situation. So I think a big part, in general fund, if you look at the 2020 budget, 71% of our operating expenses is wages and benefits. It's over half of our operating expenses of wage and benefits that are contractually obligated. So there's not much that we can, do with that. So that was our choice to present this a little bit differently. So it's a little bit more of a clear cut as opposed to, like I said, you have all these numbers and all these numbers and the two match and everything. So the individual beginning and ending balances are listed within each fund's page. So if you wanted to see, but I do list the ending balances for each fund on the recap page.
Right, and I added them up, and I'm going to start backwards. I only have a few points, but I'll start backwards on my points, though. This evening, there was a lot of discussion about over budgeting, and I'm not disagreeing on some of those line items. I understand the reasoning behind it. But what I did is I summarized it over the course, and I actually started from 2015. I didn't have some prior numbers, so I couldn't complete 2015, but just to give you an example, and I'm just disagreeing with your point only to the extent that what was nice is that it reflected how the budgeted numbers compared to the actuals. So when you're looking at the all funds balance, let's just look at 218. Budgeted was 58.8. Then when we were looking at the following year's budget, that number changed from 58.8 to 74.5. So that was a number that was provided on the following year's budget that was as of 9/30 and current through 12/31. You following me? So that number changed. And then lastly, relative to that same number, the actual ended up being at 83.1. So we went from a budgeted number of 58.8 to an actual balance that we realized at $83.1 million. And my point here, John, is just note the fact that there are significant differences with the over-budgeting term that we discussed this evening. And I'm sorry, real quick, to finish, and my question to you is, are you looking at trying to shorten that gap to some extent? I understand the reasoning why we over-budget some of these items, but when you're looking at it as a whole, you do see, and it reflects on a large scale, the fact that we are over-budgeting.
So we continue to look at our three-year actuals. So when we're doing our budget, we compare our budgeted numbers to what we spent for the past 3 years. So while some years you might have really high spikes and really low lows, the 3-year actuals are relatively comparable for a majority of our budget lines. There are some lines that, and forgive me because you threw a lot of numbers out there. I'm not quite sure where you got the numbers from.
And I can share it with you.
It would have been, I would like you to share it with me before this.
Sorry,
just so you and I could have.
actually just did it just 2 days ago. So
Okay, well.
Just to kind of get an understanding as far as how these balances were moving.
All right. I mean, okay. So the budget is presented in November, and I would certainly love to have discussed this with you and tried to figure it out, and as well as give you our methodology, because I could be speaking to something right now, and like I said, you threw a lot of numbers out there that I'm trying to track in my head, and I really can't. So it's really hard for me to either defend or.
I'm not asking you to defend it at this point. I'm just. And what I'll do is I'll share it with you. I'll send it to you, and we can discuss it further. I'm just thinking from a long-term perspective, something to consider. That's all I'm asking.
We always
take a look at it.
We always look at the lines, all right. And while I know we on a lot of the lines, the salaries and some of the other operating expenses, we put them at budget, and then they come in better at the end of the year. Some of the lines we have no control over, with the aspect of we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and we could blow the line out, or we could not spend the money and the money gets returned, as happened in 2018.
As it did, it was five, and that was a number that I ended up coming up with.
Let's try to concentrate on this year's budget, because I don't want to go back to 2015 in comparison budget. You can call John or meet with John, or we can do that another time.
And that's what the number I came up with, the 5.3, and I was showing that. Just a couple other questions as far as the audit financials. 2018, I noticed 217 didn't reflect any material weakness or significant deficiencies. Did you show
Nothing
any
in 2018 either, no.
Okay.
And I apologize. I thought that they were out there, and I'll double check that. They'll definitely be out there tomorrow, I can tell you that.
Okay, all right, no problem.
I have a question now. When you're doing a budget, I think the consistency is probably one of the more important things, as far as you had noticed, when money changed a specific item to a different system, we had to track it down a little bit more so. But my question, it would be, if we cut back on the expenditures budget, 10%, 20%, whatever, 5%, whatever it would be, what would that accomplish in the total picture? What would be the final reason for doing that? What would that accomplish? I mean, I know you.
Well,
you have a reason, so I'm asking.
ultimately, it wouldn't reflect as a deficit.
So we're not budgeting a deficit.
No, I mean, I know, and I don't want to get into that argument again.
Okay.
We had that last year, I don't want to go down that road. I don't. But you understand where I'm going with it, and that's.
When you have a fund balance, when you have a savings account, that is the purpose to. Newtown Township just did the same exact thing. They used $1 million out of their $2 million savings account to fund their 2020 budget. This is not a norm. This is not an abnormality that you budget this way, in the aspect when you have an active fund balance, when you have money in the bank to do these type of things. Listen, so for 2020, you're looking at, the operating income at a 5.1 million loss. Yep. You don't do the homeowners assistance grant. You don't transfer the money to capital. You have a balanced budget.
I agree with you, and let me touch on that point though. Is that you're right? Your projection shows that, but yet, when I actually look at the actuals, it's trending upwards. So it's not necessarily the fact that we're seeing a decrease in our overall actual balance. That's not the case. It's just a matter of the way we're approaching our budgets, Or more so, maybe our projections once we get into the following year. That's all I'm suggesting.
Yep, no, and I appreciate the suggestion. Our operating expenses only went up 3% from 19 to 20. And you can see that there's a lot of one-ticket items in the 2020 budget. So while, if you looked at historically where we are operating expenses, take out wages, because again, wages, while we do the best that we can at the negotiating table to try and curb costs, we go out for health insurance, you go out for workers' comp, we do all these things to try and save the costs where we can. Operating expenses, which is the smallest portion of our budget, when you're talking a $50 million budget and it's only $14 million, it's definitely the only place to cut is salaries, and that's not something we're looking to do.
I had a couple specific line item questions. On the sinking fund, I'm assuming that doesn't reflect the savings?
It does not, no. So obviously, we had a ratings call with Moody last week. We're expecting to have the committee's opinion this Friday. And then from there, once that happens, then it'll go to market. So no idea where we stand right now, just because I didn't.
So, but we're expecting to see at least a couple $100,000 of savings.
I think the minimum that we put in the ordinance was $330,000. But when we were here last week, it was $500,000. So yeah, we budgeted for the real expenses. Obviously, when that gets settled, that would just stay in general
fund. Put to us in November, that's what I figured, okay.
Because we don't transfer the money all on January 1st. We transfer it as the payments are due to capitalize the most interest we can in general fund.
When is that payment due?
It varies. Every bond has a different due date.
Okay.
There's some, the bulk of it's due in December, though.
Okay. Under the, what is it, Justice Federal Forfeiture?
Yes.
Fund, there's a large increase, about $145,000 in program expenses.
Yep, so I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and then if Fred needs to jump in, he certainly can because it's his fund. The Justice Federal Forfeiture is received from narcotic seizures that we're involved in. We get a portion of the asset for the amount of time that our officers work on the case. Their funding protocols dictate that you cannot budget for revenues that you haven't received. So if you noticed in 2019, we only budgeted $35,000 because that's what our fund balance was. However, throughout 2019, we've received, you can see through September, $147,000. So my number at the end of 2019 is an ending balance of $300,000. We're looking to budget about $250,000 of that on expenditures, and that's items that the federal government has a mandated list as to what we can use that money to spend it on. I think it's anything drug-related. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as well as we can also offset overtime, federal narcotics overtime with that as well.
Okay.
And then that money would go back to general fund.
Okay. I think I had one other specific line item question on B3T. Their expenses, and this kind of reflects the past couple of years, they've kind of been up and down. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Building a Better Bensalem is just an outside organization. We just house the bank account for them. They go out, they get their own donations. The committee of Building a Better Bensalem designate what they want to spend the money on. We ask them what they want to put in for an expense, and whether they spend it or not, it's on them.
Okay.
So it's really...
No township funds?
No township funds, all strictly their donations.
Okay.
We just house it for them.
Okay. That's the only specific questions I had. I had one kind of general question. In terms of the forecasts, there's one page in the back of the budget that lists these budget projections out for a couple of years. Capital expenditures, capital investment improvements, that's one that's just it's kind of a placeholder of $700,000. We know that we're going to spend more than that, or at least we're going to probably budget for more than that on certain things.
Yep.
Like the ball field lighting, for instance. So are we doing any kind of, on a this line detail level, long-term planning in terms of looking out into like 3 years in the future or 5 years in the future?
So the departments themselves, they handle the long-term financing or long-term planning on what they determine. Like Chuck had mentioned, it's been on his radar for the past number of
Right.
years at the ball field lighting. A lot of it comes down to the availability of funds. So while we know that we'll have, a road repaving project in the coming years for capital improvement, how we fund that, I don't know until we come to that prior year. Whether we've built up our savings within the general fund again, and we can do that transfer like we did last year, or this year, I'm sorry, or whether we issue debt payments, whatever the situation is, it's very hard to forecast a 5-year budget for capital improvements.
Well, it's hard to forecast it accurately, and I know things
Yeah.
will be added and stuff like that, but if we know things are on the radar, is it something that we can work on? Like we've been asking, for quarterly updates of, what our actual numbers are.
Yep.
Along with that, is there some way that we can have, and it could be, an informal whatever, but some long-term forecasting so that we understand where these things like capital improvements is just one that is low-hanging fruit. That's something that I think we've been caught sometimes where we know that there's a problem or it comes out of the blue. Some things we do know are going to be like the road repaving program.
Mhm.
Was every 2 years we were going to put $5 million into the budget.
Right.
Things
Sure,
like that.
something we can look at.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, is that it? Okay, John, I do want to thank you for your, you'll have more questions maybe at the public comment, but I think you do a great job answering questions in a layman-like fashion, okay, that people can understand. I did call you today, and you're besides being audited by different services, so our books are audited. I called you early this morning, and you called me back before I could put my glasses on, you know what I mean? So, and I went through some of this stuff that's in the weeds, and some of the same questions that were asked you tonight.
Yeah.
And you were very, if I didn't understand it the first time, you explained to me again, so I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Okay. Is there anybody that,
I just have one other quick question.
Other question?
Yeah, well, it's really unrelated to the budget, but Mayor.
well, we're not done yet, we have to do public comment. We can do other business.
Yeah, no, just a real quick, Mayor, on your letter, I do have one quick question. You had noted the Chamonix Mall, working with them, and I know it's something that, myself and through email communication is the Chamonix Mall.
Oh, okay.
You had noted that you're looking at that project, and I know it's something that came up
Yeah,
earlier this year.
The Chamonix Mall, it has a new owner, as you know. The new owners have put the Chamonix Mall on the low end of their redevelopment schedule. I'm sorry. They came in, actually came in from Chicago and Florida. Their main office in Chicago, but they brought the people up. And the main thing they talked about was a Wawa. And they wanted a Wawa on there that's going to help redevelop the mall. And my response is I don't think that's going to save the mall. I think they have to have a much bigger plan than that. They talked about Sears being turned into a
Marriott, I think.
No. There's a long story with the Wawa having something to do to bring in the Sears store, which in my estimation was baloney, because they're separate things. The thing is still going to come into, I understand, the Sears store. The Sears store has been totally gutted, and it's something like a...
David Buster's.
Yeah, Dave and Buster.
That's what they were going to do with the Macy's at one point.
No, not Macy's, I'm talking about...
They originally, remember years ago, they were supposed to do it.
So they are, there's no real substance to what they're talking about. Now, there's people talking about buying Macy's, and I understand it has been under contract now. We have no idea somebody buying it under contract and what they want to do with it. We've been trying to find out, can't answer that. There has been developers that want to come in, and apartments is the biggest thing going, apartments. And, but anyway, that's where it's at. We can't get anything substantial. We can't get them to sit at the table at this time. The management over the mall is very, very helpful. They're dealing with us all the time, trying to tell us, what they think can be done and what can help out. They were in, the management themselves, they want to, I think, a beer festival up there with the township being part of it. They put tents up and everything. They did it in Middletown up there, and it was a big success, and they want to bring it here, and I said we would cooperate and everything. That's through the management. That's not redeveloping.
Understood, right.
That's
Yeah.
nothing to do with redevelopment.
Okay.
I'll keep you posted on
Please.
anything that comes in. Macy's, I have no idea what somebody would bring it under contract without even knowing what the heck they're going to do with it.
I think what the biggest problem is, it's not owned by the mall itself, the department.
No, that's a separate.
They all have different places, so you
Yeah.
can't get one group together and say, what can we do with the mall as a whole? Because you got 3 or 4 different companies that own parts of the property.
But something interesting about that is that the mall has something to say about that. In their contract, whatever they had from years ago, the mall will have something to say about what goes into Macy's. They don't own it, but they'll have something to say. Hey, yesterday, Cyber Monday, 9.4 billion went out on the internet. So the malls have their problems.
Understood. It's just a matter of just us staying on top of it.
It's a redevelopment.
Before it gets any worse.
It's going to be a redevelopment.
Right.
And I think it's a.
I agree with you.
Let's start talking about it.
Yeah, oh, we are. As soon as there's something that
Get
I
back to the
said,
budget, because it's a budget.
Okay, that was all. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody in the public who would like to speak for or against the budget before we vote?
And before the public comes forward, Mr. Knowles, if I might, there was a question earlier about whether...
I forgot about it.
That's okay, I'm easily forgotten. There was a question about whether the township's 2018 audited financials are available on the township website. They are.
Okay, they're on there.
I took a look while I was sitting here, otherwise listening to the debate and discussion, and they are there.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Do I really have to introduce myself tonight?
Alan?
I just want to welcome the 2 new members to the township that are in administration. I think they'll do a good job. I know Dennis. Dennis lives in my neighborhood, and Ken I haven't met yet, but, welcome to the things. And you have probably the best group of people here as a team. I'm for the budget this year. I only have one question that when you talked about the Central Park trails, there was supposed to be 2 trails, one out to the middle schools. Is that part of that, or is that being pushed off till?
changed.
Yeah, that kind of got pushed to the side because there's so much intrusion in wetlands.
I agree.
They decided it wasn't going to be financially feasible, and it would take years to get all the permitting through if we wanted to do it that way. So,
Okay, I've been through there. I know what it's like. There was a grant that somebody had gotten. The president of the environmental, Tony Belfield, had gotten for that. Is that going to be like negligible now, or do we use it somewhere else? Or?
That's going to be used for the part that's going to be built. It was able to be
well,
transferred.
there was one for each of them, I thought.
No, just
one?
one.
Okay,
Yes.
my mistake.
Yeah.
Now, the other one I had was the Greenway. I know they're going to do a lot of work paving State Road. The state's supposed to do. I've been hearing rumors. Yes, is it true, or can the Greenway be incorporated in the paving or the reconstruction of State Road while they're doing that? I mean, the Greenway is going to be out that way in part of that, isn't it?
The section of the Greenway that's going to be done is in front of Waterside, from the Yacht Club up through Kamer Drive. Waterside's also expanding State Road, adding a 3rd lane in front of their property, and I believe, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but a little bit past water side up further yet.
It's not going the whole length up to the state park?
No, they will not be going up that far with the widening of State Road. They will be, my understanding is they're going to repave all of State Road next year,
Okay.
but not a widening of the whole
So
thing.
the trail that's being constructed is being paid for by the waterside developer.
That I understand. But I know we
Past
have,
that, I think we're still working on
Being
grant
in-
money, right?
Yeah, we're still working on the
We're working on that other area. We need to get right-of-ways. We have to
Right.
give construction right-of-ways from people. So we're having a little bit of trouble with that. A lot of people don't want you going on their property, and we certainly don't want to take their property, you know.
that's Penn Ren that doesn't want,
Eminent domain. So we're trying to work with that, the engineering part of that to finish, and that would go up to past Station Avenue.
okay.
But talking about the State Road project, it has nothing to do with the Greenway with PennDOT. They have nothing to do with that. That's a federal, as you know, that's a federal
Right,
grant.
but
So-
can't we do like both at the same time so that it's not,
Well,
So the greenway is not on the roadway itself. The greenway is
True.
off the roadway. So
True.
that's PennDOT's just doing just the roadway, which is,
But
and
there's a
PennDOT doesn't
section-
own the right-of-ways where we want to put the,
what I'm talking about is in front of Penn Ren. They don't want us cutting through their property, but, so the way I saw the plan going, it was gonna go along State Road. Couldn't that section be built at the same time?
that hasn't been determined yet.
It hasn't?
No. No.
And being on the environmental board, I'm watching this very
There-
closely, so,
Can I, Alan, you're dealing with government.
oh, right now,
Alan, a roadway took 10 years to connect.
I
the
know.
road, Okay?
yeah,
Everything we do with the veterans over there,
right,
12 years.
I know.
We're dealing with
Connecting
government.
Galway Road took
You're not dealing
10
with
years.
business, you're dealing with government
Government.
here. It takes time.
Right. I got boots on tonight. We talk about, all right, that's all I have. I'm for the budget is what I'm
Okay,
trying.
thank you.
I just want to add a few questions. Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else who wants to come forward for or against the budget? Okay, seeing no one come forward, close public comment. Okay, so is there, anybody who wants to put a motion forward to reference to the budget that the mayor and John Jankowski has presented?
I'll put a motion on the board to accept the budget as presented this date for 2020.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? No. Okay, and no absence, or what do you call it, abstains? No. Okay, so we have a 5-0 budget vote, okay, which is a very good progress, thank you. Okay, thank you for your cooperation, and we have a motion to adjourn. So moved. What? Oh, public, business, other business?
Yeah.
Okay, you have other business, I'm sorry.
First of all, I want to thank everybody.
I'm sorry.
For the job that our directors have done, and certainly our
Okay.
administrative people, everybody working together. I want to thank council. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to continue to give the services that everybody deserves here. And it's a team effort. I talk about teams all the time, and I thank you for the cooperation, and we look forward to a great year. And I don't know if we'll have any more meetings before Christmas or not, but if we don't, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and happy Kwanzaa to everybody. Just have a great time, and thank you again, all of council, for having the faith in us to continue doing the service that we're doing. So thank you.
Yes, tree lighting, December 8th, 5 o'clock.
Food drive, December 14th, Carrabba's.
Toys, yes.
And I want to thank my wife for staying awake tonight.
She'll be sleeping by the time you get home.
Thank you very much. That's all I had to say.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Did Mr. Pizzo, are you okay? You don't need to add anything, do you? Besides 218?
Looks like Santa Claus, look.
Yeah. No, I don't, thank you. Okay. Okay, most of council have already, besides Witcher people, we'll have to see how, we have a scheduled meeting for the 16th. I don't know, there's not much yet, so we're gonna have to see how that goes, okay? All right, so with
I have
that,
something to add before you. On
Yeah.
behalf of Mr. Pizzo, I would like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas Happy Hanukkah, happy holidays to everyone. Joe, did I do you right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, when is this Army-Navy game, too? When is that, Saturday? Jess, when is it, Saturday?
I don't know the date off the top of
I
my
think
head.
it's the 14th.
Go Navy.
Motion to adjourn. I think it's this Saturday.